Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a quiet night, where the only sound is the gentle rustle of the breeze slipping through your window. A candle's flame flickers in the dimness, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Everything is still, and your mind, free from the day's worries, begins to wander. Tonight, I invite you to travel with me thousands of years back, to a distant and captivating world, ancient China. But this won't be just any journey. We're about to delve into a dark, unsettling, yet profoundly human part of its history, the devices of torture, how they worked, and, most importantly, why they existed. Settle in, let this story wrap around you. It's a tale woven with vivid details, echoing with the lives of emperors and peasants, of justice and cruelty. This isn't just a recounting of penits, a window into an era where order, power, and fear shaped every corner of society. Are you ready? Let's begin. If this journey excites you as much as it does me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us for more stories like this. The air feels heavy as we step into the world of ancient China, a land of sprawling dynasties, intricate philosophies, and unyielding laws. For centuries, this civilization thrived on a delicate balance of harmony and authority. Emperors ruled as divine figures, their word as unassailable as the mountains. Yet beneath the grandeur of silk robes and jade palaces, there was a system of punishment designed to maintain order at any cost. Torture, in its many forms, was not merely a tool of cruelty, it was a carefully crafted instrument of control, a language of fear spoken to both the guilty and the innocent. Imagine a bustling marketplace in the Han Dynasty. Some 2,000 years ago, merchants hawk their wares, spices, pottery, bolts of shimmering cloth, while children dart through the crowd, their laughter mingling with the clamor of bartering. But in the distance, near the city's edge, a different scene unfolds. A wooden platform stands, weathered by time, where a man kneels, his hands bound. A crowd gathers, their faces a mix of curiosity and dread. The official presiding over the scene reads a proclamation, his voice sharp against the murmurs. The man has been accused of theft, a crime that threatens the fragile order of the community. His punishment, a public whipping with a bamboo rod, each strike a reminder of the emperor's reach. This was not an uncommon sight. In ancient China, justice was swift, visible, and often brutal. The goal was not only to punish but to deter, to etch the consequences of defiance into the minds of all who watched. Torture devices, from the deceptively simple to the horrifyingly complex, were part of this theater of power. They were tools to extract confessions, to enforce loyalty, or sometimes to make an example of those who dared to challenge the state. But why did such methods take root in a culture so rich in wisdom, poetry, and innovation? To understand, we must step closer, past the myths and into the lives of those who lived under these shadows. Let's begin with a man named Li Wei, a fictional but plausible figure, a farmer from a small village during the Qing dynasty, around 210 BCE. Li Wei's life was one of toil, plowing fields under the relentless sun, his hands calloused from years of labor. His village was a speck in the vast empire, yet even here, the emperor's laws were inescapable. One autumn, a drought withered the crops, and desperation crept into the village like a thief. Li Wei, unable to pay his taxes, borrowed grain from a local official, promising to repay it the next season. But when the official demanded immediate repayment with crippling interest, Li Wei could not comply. Word of his debt evasion reached the magistrate, and soon soldiers arrived at his door. Li Wei was dragged to a local prison, a damp stone cell that reeked of mildew and despair. Here, he encountered one of the simplest yet most feared tools of the time, the jang, a bamboo whip. The guards, their faces impassive, bound his wrists and began the punishment. Each lash bit into his skin, the pain sharp and unrelenting, like fire racing across his back. The goal was not to kill but to break his body, his spirit, his resistance. In that moment, Li Wei was not just a man, he was a message to his village. No one escapes the emperor's justice, but the Zhong was only the beginning. As dynasties rose and fell in Han, Tang, Song, and beyond, the methods of torture grew more varied, more precise. Some were designed to humiliate, others to prolong suffering, and a few to erase the victim entirely. From the Qing, a heavy wooden yoke that turned its wearer into a walking spectacle of shame, to the Linki, the infamous death by 1,000 cuts, these devices reflected a society grappling with questions of morality, control, and survival. Why did a civilization that gave the world the compass, gunpowder, and Confucian ethics also create such instruments of agony? The answer lies not in cruelty alone but in the complex interplay of power, fear, and human nature. Picture a Tang dynasty, official Lady Mei, a woman of sharp intellect who served in the imperial court around 700 CE. Her role was to oversee tax collection in a northern province, a task that placed her at the heart of the empire's machinery. But when whispers of rebellion stirred among the local elites, Lady Mei found herself accused of treason, a charge as flimsy as it was deadly. In a cold, shadowed hall, she faced the geogen, a wooden press that clamped her legs, tightening with each turn of a screw. The pain was excruciating, Yet the interrogator's questions never ceased. Who are your allies? What are your plans? Lady May's silence only fueled their resolve, and the screws turned tighter. Stories like these of Li Wei, Lady May, and countless others bring us closer to the human cost of these practices. They remind us that behind every device was a life, a family, a community forever altered. As we explore this history, we'll uncover not just the mechanics of torture, but the reasons it thrived: to maintain order in a sprawling empire, to silence dissent, to project power in an age of uncertainty. We'll walk through bustling cities and quiet villages, meet the condemned and the enforcers, and ask what these practices reveal about the past and about ourselves. This journey will take us through the tools themselves, some crude, others chillingly ingenious, and the stories of those who endured them. We'll see how torture was not a random act of sadism but a calculated part of a system, rooted in the belief that fear could hold a civilization together. And as we move through these chapters, we'll pause to reflect, to connect the past to the present, to wonder how far we've come and what shadows still linger. So, let's take that first step together, into a world both alien and familiar, where the line between justice and cruelty was as thin as a whisper in the night. If you're enjoying this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that bring history to life. Settle back, let the candlelight guide you. The air feels thicker now as we step deeper into the world of ancient China, where the law was not just a set of rules but a force as unyielding as the Great Wall itself. Tonight we'll explore how the legal system shaped the use of torture, why it became a cornerstone of justice, and what it meant for the people who lived under its shadow. This is a story of order and fear, of emperors and commoners, woven with the threads of a civilization that prized harmony above all, yet enforced it with an iron hand. Imagine the capital city of Chang'an during the Han Dynasty, around 100 BCE. The streets hum with life. Scholars in flowing robes debate philosophy. Carts creak under the weight of rice and silk, and temple bells ring in the distance. But at the city's heart stands the imperial palace, a sprawling complex of red pillars and golden roofs, where the emperor reigns as the son of heaven. His authority is absolute, his will the foundation of the law. To defy him is to defy the natural order, a crime not just against the state but against the cosmos itself. And in this world, where stability was everything, the law was a tool to keep the empire's many pieces in place. The legal codes of ancient China, from the Qing to the Tang dynasties, were meticulous, almost obsessively so. They covered everything: taxes, marriage, land disputes, even the proper way to address a superior. But at their core was a single purpose: to protect the emperor's rule and the harmony of the realm. Crimes like theft, rebellion, or even disrespect could ripple outward, threatening the delicate balance of society. Punishment then was not just about correcting the individual but about preserving the whole. And torture, it was the sharp edge of that preservation, a method to ensure compliance, extract truth, or simply make an example. Let's meet Zhang Huo, a fictional merchant from the Qin dynasty. Around 220 BCE, Zhang was a man of modest means, trading pottery along the roads that connected villages to the capital. His life was one of long journeys, haggling with customers and bowing to officials at every checkpoint. But one spring, a new tax was imposed, a heavy levy to fund the emperor's wars. Zhang, already stretched thin, hid a portion of his earnings, hoping to slip past the collectors. It was a small act, born of desperation, but in the eyes of the law, it was theft from the emperor himself. Word of Zhang's deception reached the local magistrate, a stern man with eyes like polished stone. Zhang was summoned to a courtyard, where soldiers stood guard and a scribe recorded every word. The magistrate's voice was calm but cutting. "Confess, and your punishment may be light." Zhang, trembling, denied the charge, his voice barely a whisper. But in this system, denial was not an option. The law demanded truth, and if it wouldn't come willingly, it would be taken by force. The guards brought out a jiojin, a wooden device that looked deceptively simple: two heavy planks, hinged together, designed to clamp around a prisoner's ankles or wrists. Zhang's legs were placed inside, and the planks were tightened, slowly, deliberately. The pressure was unbearable, like a vice crushing his bones. Each turn of the screw sent a jolt of pain through his body, his gasps echoing in the courtyard. The magistrate repeated his question: "Where is the money?" Zhang's resolve crumbled, and between sobs, he confessed, naming a hidden stash under his floorboards. The jiojin was loosened, but the message was clear: the law would not be defied. This was the reality of justice in ancient China. Torture wasn't reserved for traitors or murderers. It could touch anyone: merchants, farmers, even officials who stepped out of line. The jiojin, the bamboo whip, and other tools were not just instruments of pain but symbols of the emperor's reach, reminders that no one was beyond his grasp. And yet, this system wasn't born of sadism alone. It was rooted in a belief that society could only function if everyone played their part. The emperor, the officials, the peasants, all were cogs in a vast machine, and torture was the wrench that kept it turning. But let's pause and consider the people behind these moments. Zhang Huo wasn't just a merchant. He was a father, a husband, a man who dreamed of a better life for his children. When he returned to his village, his body bruised and his spirit broken, his family felt the weight of his punishment too. His wife, May, spent nights tending his wounds, her hands trembling as she applied herbal salves. His young son, watching from the doorway, learned a lesson he'd never forget. The law was not to be challenged. These human stories, often lost to history, remind us that every act of torture rippled far beyond the victim, touching entire communities with fear and sorrow. The legal system also relied on spectacle. Punishments were often public, staged in markets or city squares, where crowds gathered to witness the emperor's justice. Imagine a woman named Liu Fen, a weaver in the Tang dynasty, around 750 CE, accused of spreading rumors about a corrupt official. She was sentenced to wear a qing, a heavy wooden yoke locked around her neck and wrists. For days she was paraded through her town, her head bowed under the weight, her name synonymous with shame. The qing wasn't just a punishment, it was a warning to others. Speak out, and this could be you. The crowd's whispers, their averted eyes, were as much a part of the penalty as the wood itself. Why did such methods endure for centuries? Part of the answer lies in the scale of the empire. Ancient China was vast, with millions of people spread across mountains, rivers, and deserts. Governing such a realm required more than laws on paper. It demanded fear, obedience, and a system that could reach even the farthest village. Torture was efficient. A single public whipping could silence 100 potential rebels. A confession extracted under the geogen could unravel a conspiracy before it began. In a world without modern police or surveillance, pain was a tool of control, as precise as a brushstroke on a scroll. Yet there was another layer to this story, the philosophy that underpinned it. Confucianism, which shaped much of Chinese governance, emphasized hierarchy and duty. The emperor was the father of the nation, and his subjects were his children, bound to obey. Disobedience was not just a crime but a moral failing, a disruption of the cosmic order. Torture, in this view, was a correction, a way to restore balance. Even Taoism, with its focus on harmony with nature, could be twisted to justify harsh punishments. A criminal's actions disturbed the flow of the universe, and pain was the remedy to set it right. As we linger in this world, it's easy to judge, to see only cruelty in these practices. But the people of ancient China lived in a different reality, one where survival often meant submission, where the emperor's word was the thread that held the empire together. For every Zhang Huo or Liu Fen, there were countless others who followed the law out of fear, their lives shaped by the shadow of the geogen or the qing, and the officials who enforced these punishments. They, too, were part of the system, bound by duty to a machine greater than themselves. This chapter sets the stage for our journey, showing us the roots of a system that relied on torture not as an end but as a means, a tool to build an empire that endured for millennia. As we move forward, we'll meet more people, explore more devices, and uncover the stories that bring this history to life. We'll ask what drove this cycle of punishment and whether it achieved the order it sought. For now, let's hold on to Zhang's trembling voice, Liu's weary steps, and the weight of a law that shaped a civilization. If you're enjoying this dive into the past, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep these stories alive. Let's continue stepping deeper into the shadows of ancient China, where every device and every scream tells a story of power, fear, and humanity. The candle burns lower now, its glow a soft guide as we sink deeper into ancient China's shadowed past. The law, as we've seen, was the backbone of the empire, but it was the emperor's will that gave it life. In this chapter, we unravel the legal codes that justified torture, the intricate rules that bound millions, and the human stories that reveal their cost. This is a tale of divine authority, rigid order, and the fragile lives caught in its grip. Picture the Qin dynasty. Around 221 BCE, when China was first unified under Emperor Qin Shi Huang, his reign was a marvel of ambition, canals carved through mountains, the Great Wall rising against invaders, a single script uniting a fractured land. But his vision of unity demanded control, and his legal code, the legalist system, was merciless. Every crime, from theft to treason, had a prescribed punishment, etched into bamboo strips and enforced with precision. Torture was not an afterthought, it was woven into the code, a tool to ensure the emperor's dream of order endured. Meet Chen Bo, a fictional scribe in a provincial office. Chen's days were spent copying edicts, his brush gliding over silk as he recorded the emperor's decrees. He was proud of his work, believing it served the greater good. But one evening, a colleague whispered of a plot, local officials skimming taxes for themselves. Chen, torn between loyalty and fear, stayed silent. When the plot was uncovered, he was implicated, guilty by association. Dragged before a tribunal, he faced the shackles, iron cuffs that bit into his wrists, suspending him from a beam. The weight of his own body stretched his joints, each moment a slow burn of agony. "Name your accomplices," the interrogator demanded. Chen, innocent but terrified, stammered names, condemning others to save himself. This was the legalist. Weigh truth at any cost, loyalty above all. The code didn't just punish, It reshaped behavior, teaching that defiance was futile. Torture devices like the shackles were not random cruelties but extensions of the emperor's hand, designed to break resistance and extract confessions. Yet the code wasn't only about pain. It was a spectacle of power, a reminder that the emperor, as the son of heaven, held the mandate to rule and to punish. The Han dynasty, following the Qin, softened some edges, blending legalism with Confucian ideals of morality, but torture remained. The 5 punishments: branding, amputation, flogging, servitude, and death were codified, each a step on a ladder of severity. A thief might lose a hand, a rebel his head. The emperor's justice was visible, etched into flesh or displayed in public squares, ensuring no one forgot their place. Shun's story mirrors countless others. His confession saved his life but cost him everything: his job, his family's trust, his peace. As he limped back to his village, the weight of the shackles lingered, a ghost in his bones. The code had done its work, not just on him but on those who heard his story. Whispering in fear of the emperor's reach, the night grows quieter. The candles flame steady as we step into the glittering yet treacherous world of the imperial court. Here, in the halls of power, torture was not just a tool of justice but a weapon of politics. This chapter uncovers the intrigues that fueled its use, the betrayals that justified its cruelty, and the lives shattered in the name of loyalty. Imagine the Tang dynasty, around 710 CE, in the opulent city of Chang. The court is a maze of ambition, where officials, concubines, and generals vie for the emperor's favor. Silk curtains sway in the breeze, hiding whispered plots. In this world, a single misstep could mean ruin, and torture was the blade that cut through deception or created it. Enter Lady Wei, a fictional courtier with a sharp mind and a dangerous secret. She served Empress Wu, a ruler as brilliant as she was ruthless. Lady Wei overheard a plan to poison the empress, a scheme hatched by disgruntled nobles. Torn between duty and self-preservation, she hesitated to speak. When the plot unraveled, her silence made her a suspect. She was taken to a hidden chamber beneath the palace, where the finger press awaited a device that clamped her fingers in a wooden vise, tightening until her bones cracked. The pain was blinding, each question a hammer against her resolve. Who are the traitors? Desperate, she named names, some true, some invented. Her words a lifeline in a sea of agony. The court was a breeding ground for such scenes. Torture was a tool to root out conspiracies, real or imagined. In a world where loyalty was fragile, devices like the finger press were precise, designed to inflict maximum pain with minimal damage, preserving the victim for further questioning. But they also served a darker purpose: to fuel fear, to keep even the powerful in line. Empress Wu, known for her iron grip, used torture not just to punish but to project strength, ensuring her enemies, real or perceived, quaked at her name. Lady Wei survived, but her spirit was broken. Banished to a distant province, she lived in obscurity, her hands trembling from the memory of the press. Her story, whispered in the court, became a warning: trust no one, fear everything. The shadows of intrigue cast long nets, and torture was the thread that wove them tight. The candle flickers, casting long shadows as we explore a chilling truth. In ancient China, the confession was king. Torture was not just about punishment but about extracting truth, or what passed for it. This chapter delves into the psychology of confessions, the devices that forced them, and the human cost of a system that valued words over innocence. Picture a Song dynasty prison, around 1100 CE, its stone walls damp with the scent of earth and despair. Here a man named Gao Jun, a fictional clerk, awaits trial. Accused of forging documents, he insists on his innocence, but the law demands a confession. Without it, the case cannot close, the magistrate cannot rest, and the emperor's justice remains incomplete. Gao is led to a low bench, where the ankle press is prepared, a wooden frame that traps his legs, tightened by ropes until the pressure threatens to snap bone. Each twist brings a wave of pain, his scream swallowed by the cell's walls. Confess, the guard says, and this ends. Gao, delirious, finally speaks, admitting to crimes he didn't commit. The ankle press was one of many devices designed for this purpose. Its simplicity was its horror: no blades, no fire, just pressure that could break a man's will. The logic was brutal but effective. A confession closed the case, restored order, and reaffirmed the system's power, but it came at a cost. False confessions, born of pain, condemned the innocent and let the guilty walk free. Gao's words sent him to a labor camp, his life unraveling, while the true forger went unpunished. This obsession with confessions was rooted in Confucian ideals of truth and harmony. A criminal who confessed could, in theory, be redeemed, their sin expunged, but in practice, the system valued closure over justice. Devices like the ankle press, the knee crusher, or the water dropper, slow drip on the forehead that drove men mad, were not just tools of pain but of coercion, turning defiance into submission. Gao's family felt the ripples. His wife sold their home to bribe officials, hoping to free him. His children grew up with a father's name tainted by shame. The confession, meant to heal the empire's wounds, tore apart the lives it touched, leaving scars that lingered for generations. The night deepens. The candles glow a steady companion as we turn to one of the simplest yet most widespread tools of torture, the bamboo whip. This chapter explores its ubiquity, its impact, and the stories of those who felt its sting, a reminder that even the ordinary could carry extraordinary weight. Imagine a market square in the Han Dynasty. Around 50 CE, the sun beats down, vendors shout their wares, and a crowd gathers around a wooden platform. A young woman, Zulan, stands accused of stealing rice from a neighbor. Her hands are bound, her face pale but defiant. The magistrate, seated under a canopy, nods, and a guard steps forward with a jang, a bamboo rod polished by years of use. The first strike lands across Zu's back, a sharp crack that silences the crowd. Each blow is precise, tearing skin, drawing blood, until she collapses. Her crime atoned in the eyes of the law. The bamboo whip was everywhere, cheap, portable, and brutally effective. It was the go-to punishment for minor crimes: theft, disobedience, tax evasion. Its simplicity made it universal, used in villages and cities alike, but its power lay in its visibility. Public whippings were theater, each strike a lesson carved into the community's memory. Zu's punishment wasn't just for her, it was for the onlookers, a warning to stay in line. Zu's story is one of resilience and loss. The whipping left scars, physical and emotional, but she survived, returning to her family. Her mother wept as she bandaged her wounds. Her brother vowed revenge against the accuser. The bamboo whip, so ordinary, reshaped their lives, its echo lingering in their quiet moments. Across the empire, countless others bore similar marks, their bodies a map of the law's reach. The candle burns low, its light a whisper as we explore the earliest methods of torture, the crude yet effective tools that laid the foundation for centuries of punishment. This chapter traces their origins, their evolution, and the human stories that give them weight. Picture the Zhou dynasty, around 800 BCE, a time before empires, when China was a patchwork of warring states. Justice was local, often personal, but no less harsh. A man named Bo Yang, a fictional farmer, is accused of killing a rival's ox. The village elder, seeking truth, orders him bound to a tree, his arms stretched taut. Guards use a cord whip, a rope studded with knots, to lash his back. Each strike is a question, each welt a demand for answers. Bo, innocent, endures until exhaustion claims him, his silence taken as guilt. The cord whip was one of the earliest tools, born of necessity in a world without prisons or courts. Other methods emerged: hot irons pressed to flesh, weighted stones, placed on chests, forced kneeling on sharp gravel. These were not sophisticated, but they didn't need to be. Pain was the language, truth the goal. As dynasties grew, these methods evolved, but their essence remained: break the body, bend the will. Bo Yang's ordeal ended with banishment. His family left to fend for themselves. His wife, scraping by, told their children tales of their father's strength, keeping his memory alive. These early tortures, crude as they were, set the stage for the devices to come, each one a step toward a system that would define an empire. If you're gripped by these tales, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep history's whispers alive. Let's continue deeper into the shadows, where every device tells a story of pain and power. The candle's flame holds steady, a quiet beacon in the night, as we delve deeper into the heart of ancient China's punitive world. The air feels heavy with the weight of history, and tonight, we focus on one of the most enduring symbols of imperial justice, the bastion, a deceptively simple wooden staff that carried the full force of the emperor's law. This chapter uncovers its brutal simplicity, its role in the theater of punishment, and the human stories that echo through its strikes. It's a tale of order enforced through pain, of lives reshaped by a single unyielding tool. Picture a bustling town in the Tang dynasty. Around 720 CE, the marketplace is alive with color and sound. Vendors hawk sesame cakes, children chase stray dogs, and the scent of roasted chestnuts lingers in the air. But at the town's center, a wooden platform stands, weathered and stained. A crowd gathers, their murmurs falling silent as a young man, Deng Tao, is led forward. Deng, a fictional carpenter, has been accused of brawling in a tavern, a minor offense that disrupted the town's harmony. His punishment is straightforward: 30 strikes with the bastion, a heavy wooden staff, broad and polished from years of use. Deng's wrists are bound, his shirt stripped away, exposing his back to the midday sun. The executioner, a burly man with a face carved by duty, raises the bastion. The first strike lands with a dull thud, the sound reverberating through the square. Deng flinches, his breath catching, but he bites back a cry. The crowd watches, some with pity, others with grim approval. Each blow is deliberate, spaced to prolong the ordeal without killing. The bastion's simplicity is its power. No intricate mechanisms, no sharpened edges, just wood against flesh, a direct extension of the emperor's will. The bastion was a cornerstone of punishment across dynasties, from the Han to the Song. Unlike the bamboo whip, which tore skin with its flexibility, the bastion bruised and broke, targeting muscle and bone. It was used for a range of crimes: public disturbances, tax evasion, disrespect to officials. Its design varied little: a staff about 1 meter long, sometimes weighted with iron at the ends for heavier blows. Magistrates preferred it for its reliability. It could punish without maiming, leaving the victim alive to work, repent, or serve. As a warning, Deng's ordeal lasts only minutes, but each strike feels like an eternity. By the 10th, his knees buckle, his back a map of welts. By the 20th, sweat and blood mingle, dripping onto the platform. The executioner pauses, not out of mercy but to ensure Deng remains conscious. The final blow lands, and Deng collapses. Gasping, the magistrate, seated under a crimson canopy, nods. Justice has been served. Deng is untied, his brother rushing to help him stumble home. The crowd disperses, the lesson etched into their minds. The law is watchful, and the bastion is its hand. But let's linger with Deng Tao, a man whose life was more than this moment of pain. He was 23, with calloused hands from shaping wood into furniture. He had a fiancée, Zhu Ying, who waited for him in their village, dreaming of a modest wedding. The brawl was a fleeting lapse, drunken argument over a spilled cup of wine, nothing more. Yet in the eyes of the law, it was a crack in the empire's harmony, a fault that demanded correction. The bastion didn't just bruise Deng's body, it fractured his future. His injuries made carpentry painful. His earnings dwindled, and Xu Ying's family, fearing his tarnished name, called off the betrothal. Deng's story was not unique. The bastion touched countless lives, its strikes rippling through families and communities. In a small village during the Han dynasty, a woman named Li Mei watched her husband endure a similar punishment for failing to repair a canal wall. Blows left him bedridden, unable to farm, and Li Mei sold their only ox to buy medicine. Their children, too young to understand, grew up knowing hunger and the shadow of their father's shame. The bastion's simplicity belied its impact, a tool that could reshape a life with a single session. Why was the bastion so pervasive? Its practicality was unmatched. Bamboo whips frayed, iron chains rusted, but a wooden staff was cheap, durable, and easy to wield. It required no skill beyond strength, making it ideal for local officials with limited resources. Yet its true power was symbolic. The bastion was the emperor's authority made tangible, a physical reminder that justice could reach any corner of the empire. In public squares, it was a performance, each strike a line in a script that said, obey or suffer. The bastion also reflected the philosophy of the time. Confucianism, with its emphasis on hierarchy, saw punishment as a way to correct deviations from the proper path. A man like Deng, by fighting, had disrupted the social order. The bastion was the tool to realign him, to beat him back into his role as a dutiful subject. Even Taoism, which valued natural flow, could justify such measures. A criminal's actions disturbed the balance, and pain restored it. The bastion, in its bluntness, was seen as a necessary force, as natural as a river carving a canyon. But let's not forget the executioners, men whose lives were shaped by the bastion as much as their victims. Take Hu Jian, a fictional guard in the Song dynasty, who was no sadist. He was a father, supporting his family by serving the magistrate. Each swing of the bastion was a job, but it weighed on him. At night he drank rice wine to dull the memory of faces contorted in pain. His children, hearing whispers of his work, grew distant, ashamed of their father's role. The bastion's simplicity spared no one, not the punished, not the punisher. The crowd, too, played a part. In every town, people gathered to watch, drawn by fear, duty, or morbid curiosity. A merchant might whisper to his wife, "That could have been me," recalling a dodged tax. A child might cling to her mother, learning to fear the law before she could read. The bastion's strikes were a communal experience, binding the empire through shared dread. It was justice as theater, and every onlooker was an actor, complicit in the empire's order. As we step back, the bastion stands as a paradox, a tool, so ordinary it could be mistaken for a walking stick, yet so powerful it could break a man's spirit. Its legacy is in the scars it left, physical and unseen, and in the stories of people like Deng Li Mei and Hu Jian. They remind us that justice, in ancient China, was not abstract but visceral, a force that touched every level of society. The bastion was not the cruelest device we'll encounter, but its simplicity made it universal, a constant in a world of change. If you're finding this journey through history gripping, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive. Let's move forward, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and more lives await, each one a thread in the tapestry of an empire built on order and fear. The candle's glow feels softer now, its light a fragile companion as we venture deeper into the shadowed corridors of ancient China's justice system. Tonight, we step into a world of confinement and dread, where the punishment was not just pain but the slow unraveling of the mind. Our focus is the cage, a device that stripped away freedom and humanity, leaving only fear in its wake. This chapter weaves the story of the cage's cruel simplicity, its role in breaking spirits, and the lives it touched. each one a testament to the empire's unyielding grip. Imagine a small town in the Song dynasty, around 1150 CE, nestled along a river where willows sway in the breeze. The town is quiet at dusk, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and cooking fires. Near the magistrate's compound, a wooden cage stands in an open courtyard, its bars weathered but sturdy. Inside, a man named Liang Feng kneels, his shoulders hunched, his wrists bound to the frame. Liang, a fictional tailor, was accused of spreading seditious rumors about a corrupt official. His punishment is not a whip or a press, but the Kaja public prison that isolates him from the world while exposing him to its judgment. The cage was a deceptively simple device, a wooden or bamboo structure, often no larger than a meter square, designed to hold one person in a cramped, immobile state. Some were built to stand upright, forcing the prisoner to remain on their feet. Others, like Liang's, were low, compelling a constant crouch. The bars were spaced just wide enough to let passers-by see the condemned, their shame a spectacle, for all food and water were minimal. Often a bowl of thin gruel passed through the bars if the guards remembered. The cage was not meant to kill outright, but to erode body, mind, and spirit through exposure, hunger, and the weight of 1,000 staring eyes. Liang's ordeal begins at dawn. The cage is too small to lie down, too low to stand. His knees ache within hours, his muscles cramping as he shifts in vain for relief. The autumn sun beats down, then gives way to a chill night, the thin cloth of his tunic no match for the wind. Townsfolk pass by, merchants, farmers, children, some whispering, others spitting, a few averting their eyes. A woman tosses a rotten persimmon, its sour juice stinging Liang's face. The magistrate had declared his crime words against the emperor's servant are words against the emperor. The cage is his sentence, a week of confinement to teach him silence. The cage was a common punishment across dynasties, from the Han to the Ming, used for crimes that warranted humiliation as much as pain, slander, minor theft, or defiance of local authority. Its genius lay in its economy. No executioner was needed, no elaborate tools required. That cage used the environment and the community as its weapons. Sun-scorched, rain-soaked, and cold-numbed. The crowd scorn did the rest. For women, the cage was especially cruel, as public exposure violated norms of modesty, amplifying their shame. Yet it was effective, a visible deterrent that reminded every onlooker of the cost of disobedience. Liang's story is one of endurance and fracture. He was 30, a man who took pride in his needlework, stitching robes for local scholars. He had spoken carelessly in a tea house, venting frustration about an official's greed. It was a fleeting moment, but a rival tailor, eager to curry favor, reported him. Now in the cage, Liang's world shrinks to the bars around him. Sleep is impossible, hunger gnaws at his gut. By the third day, his voice cracks as he begs for water, his dignity slipping away. His wife Chanhua watches from a distance, forbidden to approach. He sells her mother's jade hairpin to bribe a guard for an extra bowl of gruel, her heart breaking as she sees Liang's hollow eyes. The cage's true cruelty was psychological. Isolation, even in a public square, was a torment of its own. Liang could see life continue, children playing, vendors laughing, but he was cut off, a ghost in the town's midst. The stares of strangers, the taunts of youths, the pity of elders all chipped away at his sense of self. Night brought no respite. The darkness amplified every sound, from the rustle of leaves to the footsteps of patrolling guards. Fear became his companion, fear of collapse, of madness, of being forgotten. The cage didn't break bones, but it broke something deeper, leaving scars no salve could heal. This punishment was rooted in the empire's obsession with control. Confucianism taught that shame was a path to reform, that public disgrace could realign a wayward soul. The cage embodied this, turning the criminal into a lesson for the community. Legalist thought, harsher still, saw the cage as a way to deter, its visibility ensuring that fear spread far beyond the prisoner. In a vast empire, where rebellions could spark from a single rumor, the cage was a tool to silence dissent before it grew, a reminder that even words could lead to ruin. But let's not forget the others touched by the cage's shadow. Chanhua, Liang's wife, faced her own ordeal. The town's whispers followed her. The trader's wife and her customers dwindled, wary of association. She worked late into the night, sewing by lamplight, to feed their 2 children, who asked why their father was in a box. The guard, who took her bribe, a man named Shen, carried his own burden. He pocketed the silver but avoided Liang's eyes, knowing the gruel wouldn't save him from the cage's toll. Shen drank to quiet his guilt, his own family noticing the strain in his voice. The cage was a punishment for one, but a weight on many. The crowd, too, was complicit. A farmer, pausing to gawk, might feel a flicker of relief. Better him than me, a scholar, passing by, might nod approvingly, seeing the cage as a bulwark against chaos. Yet some, like an old woman who slipped Liang a crust of bread, felt the stir of compassion, a quiet rebellion against the law's cruelty. The cage worked because the community upheld it, their presence turning a wooden frame into a prison of the mind. When Liang's sentence ended, he was a shadow of himself. Released at dawn, he stumbled into Chunhuo's arms, his body frail, his spirit frayed. The cage had done its work. He never spoke against the official again, but the cost was steep. His hands shook too much too so, his livelihood lost. Chunhua took on extra work, her own health fading. Their children grew up with a father who woke screaming, haunted by bars that no longer held him. The cage's legacy was not just in Liang's suffering but in the family it reshaped. The community it silenced. The cage was not the most brutal device in ancient China's arsenal, but its simplicity made it insidious. It needed no fire, no blades, just time, exposure, and the human need for belonging, twisted against the prisoner. It was a punishment that lived in the spaces between people, in the glances and whispers that made isolation unbearable. As we leave Liang's story, we carry the chill of his confinement, a reminder that the empire's justice could punish without touching the skin. If you're drawn into this haunting journey through history, please subscribe to the channel to help us keep these stories alive. Let's step forward, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and more lives await, each one a piece of a world built on order and fear. The candle's flame wavers gently, casting a soft glow as we sink deeper into the shadowed heart of ancient China's justice. The night is still, the world quiet, but within the walls of a long-forgotten prison, a different kind of torment unfolds. Night, we explore one of the most insidious methods of torture, the water drop, a deceptively simple technique that turned time and patience into weapons. This chapter traces its chilling mechanics, its psychological devastation, and the human stories that reveal its power to break even the strongest will. Picture a dimly lit cell in the Tang dynasty, around 780 CE, hidden beneath a magistrate's compound in a provincial city. The air is damp, thick with the scent of mold and despair. A woman named Xiao Rui kneels on a stone floor, her wrists bound to a low wooden frame. Xiao, a fictional herbalist, was accused of poisoning a local official's wife, a charge born of jealousy rather than evidence. Her punishment is not the whip or the cage, but something far subtler, the water drop, a method that uses nothing but a steady drip to unravel the mind. Above her forehead, a small clay vessel hangs, releasing a single drop of cold water every few seconds. It lands with a soft plink, a sound that will soon become her world. The water drop was a torture of precision, requiring no complex tools or physical strength. A prisoner was restrained, often lying or kneeling, with their head fixed beneath a spout. Water, sometimes cold, sometimes warm, dripped onto a single point, usually the forehead, at a slow, unvarying pace. At first, it was a minor annoyance, a tickle on the skin. But as hours turned to days, the relentless rhythm became unbearable. The constant impact, though gentle, irritated the skin, then bruised it, creating a raw, throbbing wound. Worse was the psychological toll. The anticipation of each drop, the inability to escape its cadence, drove prisoners to the edge of sanity. Zhao's ordeal begins in silence. The first drop lands, cool against her brow, and she barely notices. The second follows, then the third, each one a faint echo in the cell. She tries to focus on her breathing, on memories of her garden where she crushed mint and boiled ginseng, but the drops keep coming, unyielding, like a drumbeat only she can hear. By the end of the first day, her forehead stings, the skin tender from the ceaseless tapping. She shifts, straining against the ropes, but the frame holds her still. The guards stationed outside offer no words, no mercy. Their orders are clear: let the water do its work. The water drop was rare but feared, reserved for cases where confessions were critical treason, espionage, or crimes against the state. Its origins are murky, possibly tied to early Taoist experiments with endurance, twisted into a tool of coercion. Unlike the bastion or cage, it left no visible scars, making it ideal for interrogating those whose bodies needed to remain intact, like officials or scholars. Its use peaked in the Tang and Song dynasties, when magistrates sought methods that were both effective and discreet. Avoiding the public spectacle of whips or yokes, Zhao's story is one of resistance and collapse. She was 32, a widow, who had built a modest trade selling remedies to her neighbors. Her skill with herbs made her respected, but also vulnerable. Envy from a rival healer led to the false accusation. In the cell, the water drop tests her resolve. By the second day, her forehead burns, the skin chafed and swollen. Sleep is impossible. The drops disrupt any drift toward rest. Her thoughts fragment, looping between anger, fear, and the memory of her daughter Liling, waiting at home. The magistrate visits, his voice smooth: confess, and the water stops. Zhao clenches her jaw, defiant. But the drops erode her strength like a river carving stone. The true horror of the water drop was its assault on the mind. Each drip was a question, a reminder of captivity. Prisoners reported hallucinations, hearing voices in the rhythm, seeing shapes in the cell's shadows. The brain, starved of rest and overwhelmed by monotony, turned against itself. Zhao begins to doubt her own innocence, her memories blurring. Did she mix a poison by mistake? Could she have harmed someone? The drops offer no answers, only their relentless plink, plink, plink. By the fourth day, her voice breaks, and she whispers a confession, naming ingredients she never used, crimes she never committed. The water stops, but the victory is hollow. This method thrived in a system obsessed with confessions. Confucianism saw admission as a step toward moral correction, a way to restore harmony. The water drop, with its invisible cruelty, fit this ideal, extracting truth without bloodshed. Legalist thought, more pragmatic, valued its efficiency. A confession closed the case, reinforced the law, and deterred others, yet the cost was steep. False confessions, like Zhao's, condemned the innocent, while the guilty slipped free. The water drop didn't seek justice. It sought submission, bending the prisoner to the empire's will. Zhao's confession spares her life but not her spirit. Released, she returns to a village that no longer trusts her. Her daughter Liling, now 10, clings to her, but Zhao's hands tremble as she tries to grind herbs, her focus shattered. The sound of rain, once soothing, now sends her heart racing, each drop a ghost of her torment. Liling takes on chores, her childhood fading as she cares for a mother haunted by an unseen wound. The water drop's legacy is not in bruises but in the quiet moments Zhao's flinch at a dripping roof, her sleepless nights, her daughter's unspoken grief. Others felt the ripples. The magistrate, satisfied with Zhao's confession, moves on, unaware of the rival healer's deceit. The guards, hardened by years of service, share a jug of wine, trying to forget the pleas they ignored. The village, hearing of Zhao's guilt, grows wary of healers, turning to costlier physicians in the city. The water drop, used in secret, reshapes the community in ways no one sees. Its impact as subtle and pervasive as the drips themselves. The crowd, though absent from the cell, played a role in the system that birthed this torture. Public faith in the emperor's justice, bolstered by visible punishments, like the cage or bastion, allowed hidden methods like the water drop to flourish. A farmer, praising the magistrate's wisdom, unknowingly endorsed the cell's cruelty. A scholar, writing of harmony, justified the means to achieve it. The water drop was a shadow of the empire's order, unseen but ever present, its power rooted in the belief that truth could be forced. As we step back, the water drop stands as a paradox, a torture so gentle it could be mistaken for a prank, yet so devastating it could break the mind. Its simplicity was its strength, needing only water, time, and the human psyche's fragility. Zhao's story, like those before her, reminds us that the empire's justice was not just physical but psychological, a force that reshaped souls as much as bodies. The water drop was a whisper in the dark, a reminder that even the smallest things could carry the weight of an empire's will. If you're gripped by this haunting dive into history, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive. Let's continue deeper into the shadows, where more devices and more lives await, each one a thread in the tapestry of a world built on order and fear. The candle's light holds firm, a quiet anchor in the stillness of the night. As we journey further into the shadowed depths of ancient China's justice, the air feels charged, heavy with the weight of stories yet untold. Tonight, we turn to a punishment that seared both body and soul. Branding, the silent fire that marked the condemned with shame that burned long after the embers cooled. This chapter unveils the mechanics of this brutal practice, its role in the empire's order, and the human lives forever altered by its touch. A tale of pain, stigma, and the enduring scars of justice. Imagine a dusty village square in the Han dynasty, around 20 CE, where the sun hangs low, casting long shadows over a gathered crowd. The scent of charcoal and sweat lingers, mingling with the murmur of onlookers. At the center, a wooden post stands, and tied to it is a man named Wei John, a fictional laborer accused of stealing tools from a local blacksmith. His punishment is not a beating or confinement but a mark that will define him for life. Branding. A brazier glows nearby, its coals hissing as a guard heats a small iron rod, its tip shaped with the character for thief. Wei's face is pale, his eyes fixed on the glowing metal, knowing it will soon meet his skin. Branding was a punishment of precision and permanence. A metal tool, often engraved with a symbol or word, was heated until it glowed red, then pressed against the prisoner's skin, typically the face, arm, or shoulder. The burn was quick but agonizing, the flesh sizzling as the mark was etched. In the Han dynasty, brands denoted specific crimes: thief, rebel, deserter. The pain was fleeting but the scar was eternal, a visible stain that barred the branded from honest work, marriage, or respect. The silent fire didn't just punish, it exiled its victims from society while forcing them to remain within it. Wei's ordeal unfolds in moments. The guard, his face impassive, pulls the rod from the coals, its tip a dull orange. Wei is held still, his arm bared, his breath ragged. The crowd falls silent as the iron meets his skin, a sharp hiss cutting through the air. Wei cries out, the pain like a blade of fire burrowing deep. The smell of charred flesh rises, and the character for thief takes shape, raw and red against his arm. The guard steps back, and Wei slumps against the post, trembling. The magistrate, watching from a shaded platform, nods. The law has spoken, its verdict now written on Wei's body. Branding was widespread across dynasties, from the Qing to the Tangs, used for crimes that warranted lasting shame: petty theft, desertion, or minor acts of defiance. Its simplicity made it practical, a brazier, an iron, and a moment were all it took. Unlike the cage or water drop, branding was public, a spectacle meant to deter. The crowd was not just an audience but a participant, their gasps and whispers reinforcing the mark's power. For women, the punishment was doubly cruel, as a facial brand destroyed prospects of marriage, casting them into a life of scorn. Yet, its effectiveness was undeniable. A branded man was a walking warning, his scar a sermon on obedience. Wei's story is one of loss and survival. He was 28, a man who hauled stones for a living, his hands rough from years of labor. The theft was born of desperation. His mother was ill and he couldn't afford medicine. The stolen tools, sold for a few coins, were his attempt to save her. But in the Empire's eyes, theft was theft, and mercy was scarce. The brand on his arm changes everything. Released after the punishment, Wei returns to his village, but the mark draws stares. Neighbors who once greeted him now turn away. The blacksmith, his accuser, refuses him work, and other employers follow suit, wary of a thief. Wei's mother, seeing the scar, weeps, blaming herself for his crime. The Silent Fire's true cruelty was social. The brand didn't just mark the skin, it reshaped identity. Wei becomes the thief, his past erased by a single word burned into his arm. His sister, Mei Lin, tries to shield him, bartering her embroidery to buy food. But the village's whispers follow her too. She hears children taunt her brother's name, sees women clutch their baskets when he passes. Wei, once quick to laugh, grows quiet, his eyes dull. He takes to covering the scar with a rag, but the shame clings like smoke, inescapable. At night, he traces the raised tissue, the pain a memory that flares with every touch. Branding was rooted in the Empire's philosophy. Confucianism, with its emphasis on social roles, saw shame as a corrective force. A branded criminal, marked as an outcast, was pushed to reform, or so the theory went. Legalism, more cynical, valued the brand's deterrent effect. One scarred face could silence 100 potential thieves. The Silent Fire was a tool of control, its permanence ensuring that punishment lingered long after the crime was forgotten. In a society where reputation was everything, the brand was a sentence worse than death for some, stripping away dignity in a single searing moment. The executioners, too, bore the weight of this practice. Consider Gao Shen, a fictional god, who wielded the branding iron. Gao was no monster. He was a widower, raising a daughter on a meager wage. Each brand he applied was a task, but the screams haunted him. He saw Wei's face in his dreams, the moment of contact replaying like a curse. Gao taught his daughter to read, hoping she'd escape his life, but the village knew his role. The burner, they called him, their respect tinged with fear. The Silent Fire marked him too, its shadow a stain on his soul. The crowd played its part, as always. A merchant, watching Wei's branding, might tighten his grip on his coin purse, vowing to pay his taxes. A mother might pull her son closer, whispering, "See what happens to thieves." Yet some felt unease. A farmer who slipped Wei a bowl of rice, a girl who looked away, ashamed of her own curiosity. The brand's power came from the community's complicity, their silence turning a burn into a life sentence. The Silent Fire was not just the iron's heat but the collective gaze that made the mark a cage of its own. When Wei's mother dies, the loss breaks him further. Unable to find work, he leaves the village, drifting to a distant city where no one knows his face. But the brand follows, drawing suspicion at every turn. Mei Lin, left behind, carries her own scars, her brother's absence a wound that never heals. The Silent Fire's legacy is in these fractious families, torn apart, futures stolen, all for a moment's pain. The brand was a whisper of the Empire's power, a mark that spoke louder than any proclamation. Its message clear: step out of line, and you will never belong again. The Silent Fire was not the cruelest of ancient China's tortures, but its permanence made it devastating. It was a punishment that lived on in the skin, in the eyes of others, in the quiet moments when the branded touched their scars and remembered. Wei's story, like those before, reminds us that the Empire's justice was a force that reshaped lives with brutal efficiency. The brand was a flame that burned silently, its light casting shadows of shame across centuries. If you're caught in the grip of this haunting history, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive. Let's press on, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and more lives await. Each a thread in a tapestry of an empire forged in order and fear. The candle's flame flickers, a steady guide through the quiet night. As we step back into the shadowed world of ancient China's justice, the air carries a faint chill, a reminder of the harsh realities we're about to uncover. Tonight, we explore the Wheel of Pain, a public spectacle that turned punishment into theater, binding communities through shared fear. This chapter delves into its mechanics, its role in the Empire's order, and the human stories that echo through its creaks and groans, a tale of agony displayed for all to see. Picture a city square in the Song dynasty, around 1200 CE, alive with the bustle of a market day. Stalls overflow with silk and spices, and the clang of a blacksmith's hammer rings out. But at the square's heart, a wooden platform draws a crowd. On it stands a large weathered wheel, its spokes thick and sturdy, like the bones of some ancient beast. Tied to it is a woman named Huyan, a fictional seamstress accused of aiding a fugitive. Her punishment is the wheel, a device that spins its victim through a cycle of pain and humiliation. The crowd murmurs, some curious, others uneasy. As the executioner prepares to begin, the wheel was a rare but striking tool, used for crimes that demanded a public lesson, harboring criminals, spreading dissent, or defying imperial edicts. The prisoner was bound to the wheel's spokes, arms and legs spread, their body exposed. The executioner would strike with a staff or whip, sometimes spinning the wheel to disorient the victim and prolong the ordeal. The blows were calculated, meant to bruise and exhaust rather than kill, ensuring the punishment lingered in both body and memory. The wheel's true power was its visibility. It turned suffering into a performance, each turn a warning to the onlookers. Hu Yan's ordeal begins as the sun climbs high. Her wrists and ankles are lashed to the wheel, the ropes biting into her skin. The executioner, a grim-faced man, raises a bamboo staff. The first strike lands across her back, a sharp crack that silences the crowd, who gasps, her body tensing. The wheel creaks as it spun, her world tilting, the faces of the crowd blurring into a haze. Another blow follows, then another, each one a jolt of fire. The spinning stops, then starts again, the motion nausea-inducing, the pain relentless. The magistrate, watching from a shaded dais, declares her crime, sheltering an enemy of the emperor. The wheel turns, and whose cries become the square's anthem. The wheel was a spectacle of control, rooted in the empire's need to project power. Confucianism saw public punishment as a way to restore harmony, the criminal's pain a lesson. In duty legalism, more direct, used the wheel to deter, its drama ensuring that fear spread far beyond the platform, whose punishment isn't just for her. It's for the merchants who might hide a fugitive, the scholars who might whisper rebellion. The crowd, complicit in their watching, carries the message home. Their silence a thread in the empire's fabric, whose story is one of sacrifice and loss. She was 30, a widow who stitched garments for a living, her hands nimble with a needle. The fugitive was her brother, a man fleeing a false charge of theft, who gave him a night's shelter, unable to turn him away. Betrayed by a neighbor, she now pays the price. The wheel leaves her bruised, her spirit frayed. Released, she stumbles home, her daughter, Min, tending her wounds with trembling hands. The village shuns her, her customers vanish, and Min, just 12, takes up sewing to keep them fed. The wheel's pain lingers, a shadow over their lives. The executioner, too, bears the weight. Li Kong, a fictional god, swings the staff but finds no joy in it. At night, he sees Hu's face, her defiance crumbling with each turn. His son asks why he looks so tired, and Li lies, sparing him the truth. The crowd, from the farmer who winces to the child who stares, is part of the wheel's power, their presence turning pain into policy. The wheel of pain was a machine of the empire, its creaks a language of fear that bound a nation. The night deepens. The candles glow, a quiet companion as we walk the streets of ancient China, where shame was a punishment as sharp as any blade. Tonight, we meet the Qing, wooden yoke that turned its wearer into a living warning. This chapter uncovers its heavy burden, its role in social control, and the human stories that carry its weight, a tale of humiliation that walked among the people. Imagine a market street in the Ming dynasty, around 1400 CE, lined with stalls selling jade and dumplings. Amid the chatter, a man named Shen Bo shuffles forward, his head and hands locked in a Kanga square wooden board, heavy and unwieldy, clamped around his neck. Shen, a fictional baker, was caught selling short-weight loaves, cheating his customers. His punishment is to wander the town for a month. The Qing, his constant companion. The board, carved with his crime, chafes his skin, its weight bowing his shoulders. Passers-by jeer, children throw pebbles, and Shen's eyes stay fixed on the ground. The Qing was a tool of shame, used for minor crimes, fraud, slander, or public disturbances. Made of wood, it was a meter square, with holes for the neck and sometimes the hands, too heavy to lift, too rigid to rest. The wearer could neither feed nor clean themselves, relying on family or strangers for survival. The Qing was public, forcing the condemned to face their community's scorn. Its cruelty was in its duration. Days or weeks of exposure, hunger, and ridicule broke the spirit as surely as any whip. Shen's days blur into a haze of pain and shame. The Qing presses against his throat, making swallowing difficult. His wife Jia brings him rice, feeding him like a child, her face tight with grief. The town's laughter stings worse than the board's weight. Shen, once proud of his bakery, feels his identity erode. By the second week, his legs tremble, his skin raw from chafing. A kind vendor slips him water, but most mock or ignore him. The magistrate's goal is clear. Shen's humiliation ensures no one else dares cheat. The Qing was a Confucian tool, using shame to correct behavior. Legalism saw it as a deterrent, its visibility amplifying its reach. Shen's family suffers. Jia sells their oven to pay debts, Their son faces taunts at school. The Kang's weight falls on them all, a punishment that binds the community through shared judgment. Shen survives, but his bakery fails, his pride a memory. The yoke of wood was a slow, heavy justice, its burden carried long after it was removed. The candle burns low, its light a whisper as we enter the cold metallic world of chains. Tonight, we explore the chains of torment, a punishment that bound body and soul in unrelenting restraint. This chapter traces their chilling grip, their role in breaking resistance, and the lives they shackled, a story of captivity that echoed through stone cells. Picture a prison in the Tang dynasty. Around 730 CE, its walls damp and unyielding. A man named Guatai, a fictional poet, sits chained to a stone bench. Gua was accused of writing verses, mocking an official, a crime of disrespect. His punishment is the chain's iron links that bind his wrists, ankles, and neck, heavy and rusted, restricting every move. The metal bites into his skin, the weight exhausting. Guo's cell is a world of clinks and shadows, each moment a struggle against his bonds. Chains were a versatile torture, used for interrogation or punishment. They could be tightened to immobilize, weighted to exhaust, or heated to burn. In Gua's case, the chains are a constant pressure, their weight forcing him to sit hunched, his joints aching. The guards tighten them daily, demanding he recant. His poems, Gua resists, but the chains wear him down, his defiance fading with each clank. The cold metal is a reminder. The empire's grip is inescapable. Chains were common, from the Qin to the Song, for crimes like sedition or rebellion. Their cruelty was in their persistence. Unlike a whip's quick strike, chains punished hour after hour. Guo's wife Lan bribes a guard for news, her savings dwindling. His students, once inspired by his words, fall silent, fearing association. The chains bind more than Gua. They shackle his world. Released, he never writes again. His hands trembling, his voice lost. The chains of torment were a slow, grinding justice. Their clank a sound of surrender. That night grows heavy. The candles glow faint as we face one of the darkest tortures, Linky, the death by 1,000 cuts. This chapter uncovers its gruesome mechanics, its rare but terrifying use, and the human cost of its cruelty, a tale of horror that lingers like a stain. Imagine an execution ground in the Qing dynasty, around 1700 CE, ringed by a silent crowd. A man named Fang Wei, a fictional rebel, kneels bound, as an executioner sharpens a thin blade. Fang led a small uprising against tax hikes, a desperate act crushed by imperial forces. His sentence is Linky, a punishment reserved for treason or heinous crimes. The executioner begins, slicing small pieces of flesh from Fang's arms, legs, and torso. Each cut is precise, meant to prolong suffering. Fang screams, his voice fading as the cuts multiply, the crowd watching in horror. And Linky was rare, used sparingly for its sheer terror. The executioner made hundreds of cuts, removing flesh bit by bit, keeping the victim alive as long as possible. Death came slowly, from blood loss or shock, often after hours. Fang's wife, watching from the crowd, collapses, her world unraveling. His followers, seeing his fate, abandon their cause. Linky was a spectacle of power, its horror a message: defy the emperor, and your end will be unimaginable. The practice, rooted in legalist deterrence, was a final resort, its cruelty a warning to all. Fang's family is shunned, his name erased. The executioner, a man with no choice, drinks to forget the blood on his hands. The crowd carries the image home, their fear cementing the empire's rule. Linky was a cut not just to the body but to the soul of a community, its memory a wound that never healed. The candle's light is a mere whisper now, guiding us to a subtler but no less cruel punishment, silencing the voice. This chapter explores methods that targeted speech, their role in crushing dissent, and the lives they muted, a story of words stolen by force. Picture a scholar's cell in the Song dynasty. Around 1130 CE, a woman named Lin Zhu, a fictional poet, sits bound, her mouth fitted with a gag of iron, a metal device that presses her tongue, making speech impossible. Lin wrote verses criticizing corruption, earning her a charge of sedition. The gag is her punishment, a tool to silence her voice and her ideas. It chokes her breath, aches her jaw, and leaves her thoughts trapped, a torment as real as any blade. Gags, muzzles, and tongue presses were used to punish slander, heresy, or dissent. They were subtle, leaving no scars but stealing the prisoner's ability to protest. Lin's gag is removed daily for interrogation, but her silence is demanded. Her husband, smuggling her poems to safety, risks his own life. Her readers, inspired by her words, grow quiet, fearing the same fate. The silence forced was a punishment that echoed, muting not just Lin but a generation's courage. If you're gripped by these haunting tales, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep history's whispers alive. Let's continue, deeper, into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's relentless order. The candle's flame dances softly, its glow a gentle guide through the quiet night, pulling us deeper into the shadowed world of ancient China's justice. The air feels still, heavy with the weight of stories that linger like whispers on the wind. Tonight, we step into a cell where movement itself becomes the enemy, where the board of thorns, a cruel bed of spikes, turns stillness into agony. This chapter unveils its piercing simplicity, its role in breaking the body's resolve, and the human lives it scarred, each a testament to an empire's unrelenting order. Picture a stone-walled prison in the Tang dynasty. Around 760 CE, its air damp and thick with the scent of mildew. In a narrow cell, a man named Cao Ming lies on a wooden board studded with short, blunt iron spikes, the board of thorns. Cao, a fictional blacksmith, was accused of forging weapons for bandits, a charge he denies. His punishment is to endure this device for 3 days, each moment a test of endurance. The spikes, not sharp enough to kill but cruel enough to bite, press into his back, legs, and arms. Any shift for relief drives them deeper, making stillness the only escape, a stillness that becomes its own torment. The board of thorns was a rare but dreaded tool, used for interrogation or punishment in cases of suspected rebellion or serious crimes. The board, about 2 meters long, was fitted with dozens of iron or wooden spikes, spaced to maximize discomfort without fatal injury. Prisoners were strapped down, their weight forcing the spikes into their flesh. The device's cruelty lay in its paradox. Movement brought pain, but lying still invited muscle cramps and numbness. Sleep was nearly impossible, the spikes a constant reminder of captivity. The goal was to weaken resistance, to make confession or compliance the only path to relief. Cao's ordeal begins as he's bound to the board, the spikes pressing like 100 needle points. At first he grits his teeth, trying to hover above them, but his strength fails. His weight settles, and the spikes dig in, each one a dull, throbbing ache. The cell is silent save for his shallow breaths and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. He thinks of his wife, Shu, tending their forge alone, and his son who idolizes him. The guards, shadowed figures beyond the bars, offer no words, only the command, confess, and you'll be freed. Cao's silence is his defiance, but the board tests his limits. The board was a product of the empire's ingenuity, blending legalist efficiency with Confucian ideals of correction. Pain was a teacher, the spikes a lesson in submission. Used sparingly, it was reserved for those whose crimes threatened the state's stability, bandits, rebels, or spies. Its privacy, hidden in cells, contrasted with public punishments like the qing, making it a tool for extracting secrets. Cao's charge, though false, stems from a rival's betrayal, a blacksmith jealous of his skill. The board doesn't seek truth, it demands surrender, it spikes a language of coercion. Cao's body betrays him by the second day. His muscles scream for movement, but each twitch presses the spikes deeper, drawing blood. His mind drifts, feverish, to memories of hammering, iron, the clang of metal, a rhythm he clings to. The pain blurs time, hours stretching into eternity. On the third day, his voice cracks, and he mutters a confession, naming names he barely knows. The guards lift him, his back a map of welts, and he collapses, free but broken. The board has done its work, bending a man who shaped iron to the will of the empire. Cao's story ripples outward. Shu, his wife, sells their tools to pay for medicine, her hands blistered from taking over the forge. Their son, seeing his father's trembling frame, grows angry, vowing to confront the rival who betrayed them. The village, hearing of Cao's guilt, shuns him, their trust in his craftsmanship gone. The board spikes pierce more than flesh. They cut through family, community, and hope. Cao returns to work, but his strength is gone. His pride, a memory swallowed by pain. The guards, too, carry the board's weight. A young man named Tian winces as he straps Cao down. His own father, a blacksmith, Tian drinks to dull the memory of Cao's groans, his dreams haunted by the board's creak. The magistrate, distant and unmoved, sees the confession as justice, unaware of the rival's deceit. The board of thorns, hidden in shadows, reshapes lives with quiet cruelty. It spikes a silent force in the empire's machine. The crowd, though absent, upholds the system. Villagers who praise the magistrate's firmness enabled the cell's horrors. A neighbor who buys Shu's tools, pitying her, still believes Cao's guilt. The board's work validated by their faith in order. The board was a private punishment with public echoes, its pain a thread in the tapestry of control that bound millions. As we leave Cao's cell, the board of thorns stands as a chilling symbol, a device that turned the body against itself, making rest a torture. Its simplicity was its horror, needing only wood, iron, and time to break a man. Cao's story, like those before, reminds us that the empire's justice was a force of precision, reshaping lives with calculated pain. The board was a whisper of power. Its spikes a reminder that even stillness could be weaponized. Let's press on, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire forged in fear and order. The candle's glow is a quiet companion, its light weaving through the darkness as we journey further into ancient China's world of justice. The night is calm, but beneath its surface lies a tension, like a rope pulled tight. Tonight, we explore the taut rope, a torture that stretched the body to its breaking point, testing the limits of human endurance. This chapter traces its cruel mechanics, its place in the Empire's punitive system, and the human stories that bear its strain, a tale of resilience, stretched thin by an unyielding force. Imagine a courtyard in the Han Dynasty, around 80 CE, enclosed by high walls that muffle the sounds of a nearby market. The air is sharp with the scent of dust and sweat. A woman named Jia Li, a fictional weaver, stands with her arms bound above her head, ropes tied to a wooden beam. Jia was accused of hiding stolen silk, a crime she denies. Her punishment is the taut rope, her body suspended, the ropes tightened to stretch her limbs until every muscle screams. The guards watch, their faces blank, as the ropes creak with her weight. Each moment a battle against collapse. The taut rope was a torture of tension, used to interrogate or punish those suspected of theft, smuggling, or minor rebellion. Ropes were tied to wrists, ankles, or both, then pulled tight, sometimes lifting the prisoner off the ground. The strain tore at joints and muscles, the pain intensifying with each minute. In some cases, weights were added, or the ropes were twisted, with sticks to increase the pull. The goal was not to kill but to exhaust, to push the body to its limit until confession or submission followed. The rope's simplicity needing only cord and a frame made it a staple in prisons and tribunals. Jia's ordeal begins as the ropes are tightened, her arms yanked upward until her toes barely touch the ground. The pain is immediate, a burning, pull in her shoulders that radiates down her spine. She gasps, trying to shift her weight, but the ropes hold firm, each movement a new agony. The courtyard is silent save for the creak of the beam and her labored breathing. She thinks of her daughter, Wei, waiting at home, unaware of her mother's fate. The magistrate's voice cuts through. Where is the silk? Jia's silence is her shield, but the ropes test her resolve, pulling her closer to breaking. The taut rope was a tool of precision, rooted in the Empire's blend of legalist and Confucian thought. Legalism demanded efficiency, and the rope delivered breaking resistance without bloodshed. Confucianism saw suffering as a path to correction, the prisoner's pain a step toward harmony. Jia's accuser, a rival weaver, fabricated the charge to ruin her, but the system cares little for truth. The rope seeks answers, not justice. Its tension a metaphor for the Empire's grip on its people. By the second hour, Jia's shoulders feel like they're tearing apart, her wrists roar from the rope's bite, her legs tremble, unable to bear her weight. The guards twist the ropes tighter, and she cries out, the sound swallowed by the walls. Her mind phrase, memories of weaving, her fingers dancing over the loom, mixing with the pain. On the third hour her voice breaks, and she mutters a false confession, naming a hiding place that doesn't exist. The ropes slacken, and she collapses, her body a map of strain, her spirit bruised. Jia's story echoes through her family. Wei, just 9, takes up weaving to support them, her small hands struggling with the loom. Jia, her shoulders never fully healing, works in pain, her one steady hands unsteady. The village, hearing of her guilt, avoids her, their trust lost. The taut rope's legacy is in these fractures. Jia's broken body, Wei's stolen childhood, a community divided by a lie. The punishment, meant to restore order, sows only discord. The guards, to feel the strain. One named Feng, tightens the ropes but avoids Jia's eyes. His own sister, a weaver. He drinks to forget her cries, his wages barely enough to ease his guilt. The magistrate, satisfied with a confession, moves on, blind to the rival's deceit. The crowd, though absent, what upholds the system? Their faith in the law, enabling the courtyard's cruelty. The taut rope was a private torment with public roots. Its tension a thread in the Empire's control, that as we step away. The taut rope stands as a symbol of limits, physical, emotional, and moral. Its simplicity was its power, needing only rope and will to push a body beyond endurance. Jia's story reminds us that the Empire's justice was a force that stretched lives to breaking. Its pain a quiet but relentless tide. The rope was a whisper of power. Its creak a sound of surrender in a world bound by order. Let's continue, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's unyielding will. The candle's light is a faint whisper, its glow barely holding back the darkness as we descend into the depths of ancient China's punitive world. The night is heavy, the silence thick with the weight of forgotten souls. Tonight, we explore the pit of despair, a subterranean prison that swallowed its victims in darkness and isolation. This chapter uncovers its suffocating cruelty, its role in erasing defiance, and the human stories that linger in its shadows, a tale of oblivion that tested the limits of hope. Picture a fortress in the Qing dynasty. Around 210 BCE, its stone walls rising like a mountain against the sky. Beneath it lies a network of underground cells, carved into the earth, their entrances sealed with iron grates. In one such pit, a man named Su Hao sits, his knees drawn to his chest, the damp earth cold against his skin. Su, a fictional soldier, was accused of deserting his post during a campaign, a charge born of a commander's grudge. His punishment is the pit, a lightless hole, barely 2 meters wide, where time and hope dissolve. The air is stale, thick with the scent of mold, and the only sound is the drip of water from unseen cracks. The pit of despair was a rare but terrifying punishment, used for crimes that demanded total isolation, desertion, betrayal, or minor treason. These cells, often dug deep into the ground, were small, unventilated, and inescapable. Prisoners were lowered by rope, left with minimal food and water, sometimes for weeks. The darkness was absolute, the isolation crushing. The pit didn't break the body with blows, but the mind with absence of light, sound, human touch. Its goal was to erase resistance, to make the prisoner a ghost before their sentence ended. Sue's ordeal begins as he's lowered into the pit, the grate slamming shut above. The darkness is immediate, a void that swallows his senses. He reaches out, his fingers brushing slimy stone. The walls too close for comfort. A bowl of millet and a jug of water are lowered daily, but hunger gnaws at him, the portions barely enough to survive. He tries to count the days, scratching marks on the wall, but time blurs and the endless black memories of his wife, May, and their newborn son keep him anchored. But the pit's silence threatens to unravel even those. The pit was a tool of psychological destruction, rooted in the empire's legalist drive for control. Isolation was a weapon, stripping away identity until confession or madness followed. Confucianism, with its focus on community, saw the pit as a way to remove disruptors, restoring harmony by erasing them. Sue's desertion was a lie. He had fallen ill and been left behind, but the commander's word was law. The pit doesn't seek truth, it demands submission, its darkness a sentence of oblivion. By the 10th day, Sue's mind phrase. He hears whispers. In the silence, his son's laughter, May's voice, then stranger sounds, born of his own fear. His body weakens, his legs cramping from the confined space. He shouts, his voice echoing, but no one answers. On the 15th day, a guard lowers a scroll, demanding he confess. Sue, desperate for light, scrawls his guilt, the words a lie to escape the void. He's pulled out, blinking at the sun, his body frail, his spirit a shadow. The pit has won, bending a soldier to the empire's will. Sue's story scars his family. May, hearing of his crime, sells their land to survive, raising their son alone. The boy grows up with tales of a father who vanished, his memory tainted by shame. Sue, released, wanders, unable to return home, his mind haunted by the pit's darkness. The village, believing his guilt, moves on, the pit's work complete. Its legacy is in these losses: May's solitude, a son's longing, Sue's broken soul. The guards, like one named Wrong, carry the pit's weight. Wrong lowers the rope but avoids the prisoner's eyes. His own brother, once a soldier, he prays for their souls, his hands trembling as he seals the grate. The commander, satisfied with Sue's confession, gains favor, blind to the lie. The pit, hidden beneath the earth, is upheld by the empire's faith in order, its darkness a secret kept by those who never entered it. The pit of despair was a torture of absence, its power in what it took: light, hope, humanity. Sue's story reminds us that the empire's justice could punish without touching, its cruelty a quiet force that buried lives in shadow. The pit was a whisper of power, its silence a sentence that echoed beyond its walls. Let's move deeper, into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a thread in an empire's unyielding order. The candle's flame burns low, its light a fragile thread in the darkness, drawing us deeper into the grim heart of ancient China's justice. The night is heavy, the air thick with the weight of a punishment too cruel to linger in the mind. Tonight, we face the 5 pains, a rare and horrific execution that marked the empire's ultimate judgment. This chapter unveils its brutal mechanics, its role as a final warning, and the human stories that carry its terror, a tale of agony that sealed the empire's power and blood. Picture an execution ground in the Han Dynasty, around 50 BCE, a barren field outside a walled city. The sky is gray, the air sharp with the scent of dust and fear. A crowd gathers, their faces a mix of dread and duty, as a man named Peng Fei kneels, his hands bound, his head bowed. Peng, a fictional merchant, was convicted of plotting against a governor, a charge fueled by a rival's lies. His sentence is the 5 pains, a punishment reserved for high treason or heinous crimes. The executioner, blade in hand, prepares to enact a ritual of unimaginable cruelty. Each step a message to the empire. The 5 pains was a methodical execution, its name varying by dynasty but its essence consistent, a sequence of mutilations culminating in death. The prisoner faced 5 stages: branding, amputation of hands or feet, castration, disembowelment, and finally beheading. Each act was deliberate, prolonging suffering to maximize terror. The process could take hours, the executioner skilled in keeping the victim alive until the final blow. The 5 pains was rare, used only for crimes that shook the state's foundation, its horror a deterrent etched into the crowd's memory. Peng's ordeal begins with a hot iron pressed to his chest, the character for traitors seared into his skin. He screams, the pain of fire that consumes his senses. The crowd flinches, some turning away, but the executioner continues, severing Peng's right hand with a swift cut. Blood pools, and Peng's cries weaken, his body trembling. The next steps follow castration, a slash to the abdomen, each act precise, each pause a moment for the crowd to absorb the lesson. Finally, the blade falls, and Peng's suffering ends, his body a broken testament to the emperor's wrath. The Five Pains was a spectacle of power, rooted in legalist thought. Its brutality ensured that rebellion was unthinkable, its visibility binding the crowd to the empire's will. Confucianism, though valuing mercy, justified it as a necessary purge, removing the worst threats to harmony. Peng's accuser, a rival merchant, prospers, his lie buried in the execution's finality. The Five Pains doesn't seek truth, it demands fear, its cruelty a seal on the empire's authority. Peng's story devastates his family. His wife Hui watches from the crowd, collapsing as the blade falls. She sells their shop to survive, raising their daughters in poverty, their father's name a curse. The girls grow up with whispers of traitor's blood, their futures dimmed. Peng's brother, driven by grief, vows revenge but flees, fearing the same fate. The village, shaken by the execution, doubles their taxes to prove loyalty. The Five Pains' terror reshaping their lives. The executioner, a man named Duan, bears the weight. He sharpens his blade with care, but each cut haunts him. At night, he sees Peng's face, his hands stained with more than blood. His son, ashamed of his father's role, leaves home, seeking a different life. The crowd, from the farmer who trembles to the scholar who nods, upholds the punishment, their presence making the Five Pains a communal act. Its power lies in their silence, their fear a chain that binds the empire. If you're gripped by this haunting journey through history, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive. The Five Pains was a rare but indelible mark, its cruelty a warning that echoed across generations. Peng's story reminds us that the empire's justice could destroy with precision, its pain a fire that consumed lives. The Five Pains was a roar of power, its horror a legacy that lingered in the empire's shadow. Let's continue deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's unyielding order. The candle's light steadies, a soft beacon in the night, as we step into the crowded squares of ancient China, where justice was not just enforced but performed. The air hums with anticipation, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing down. Tonight, we explore how torture became a public spectacle, a theater of pain that bound communities to the empire's will. This chapter uncovers the stage of punishment, its role in shaping society, and the human stories that played out under the people's gaze, a tale of fear woven into the fabric of daily life. Picture a bustling city in the Tang dynasty. Around 790 CE, its streets alive with the clatter of carts and the calls of vendors. At the heart of the market, a wooden platform rises, stained by years of use. A man named Sun Hao, a fictional scribe, stands bound, his head bowed. Sun was accused of forging tax records, a crime against the emperor's treasury. His punishment is a public flogging, 30 lashes with a bamboo whip, to be witnessed by all. The crowd gathers, merchants, farmers, children, their faces a mix of curiosity, fear, and grim resolve. The whip's crack will be their lesson, the empire's voice. Public torture was a cornerstone of ancient China's justice, transforming punishment into performance. Devices like the bamboo whip, kang, or wheel were used in squares and markets, where crowds could see the cost of defiance. The spectacle was deliberate. Each strike, each cry, was a message to obey. Flogging, brandings, or the kang's slow parade turned criminals into actors in a drama of power. The crowd was not just an audience but a participant, their presence validating the law, their silence reinforcing the emperor's rule. Sun's flogging begins as the executioner raises the whip. The first strike lands, a sharp snap across his back, and Sun gasps, his knees buckling. The crowd watches, some whispering, others still. The lashes continue, each one tearing skin, blood staining his tunic. The magistrate, seated under a silk canopy, declares Sun's crime, his voice carrying over the square. By the 20th lash, Sun's cries fade to whimpers, his body slumped. The final blow falls, and he's untied, collapsing into his brother's arms. The crowd disperses. The lesson clear: the empire sees all, and its justice is swift. The spectacle was rooted in the empire's philosophy. Confucianism used public shame to correct the crowd's gaze, a mirror for the criminal's fault. Legalism saw it as deterrence, each punishment a warning to thousands. Sun's crime was a mistake, a misrecorded sum, not theft, but the system demands examples. The public stage doesn't seek truth, it projects power, turning pain into policy. The whip's crack is a language, its echo binding the city to the emperor's will. Sun's story fractures his world. He was 40, a man who loved calligraphy, his brush dancing over silk. The flogging leaves him scarred, his back a web of welts that ache with every move. His wife, Lian, tends him, selling her jewelry to buy salves, her heart heavy with his pain. Their son, seeing his father broken, abandons his studies, ashamed of their name. The village, once respectful, now avoids Sun, their trust gone. The spectacle's legacy is in these losses. Sun's pride, Lian's savings, a family's future dimmed by a public lash. The executioner, a man named Bo, feels the weight. He wields the whip with skill but no joy, each strike a duty that haunts him. At night, he drinks, trying to forget son's cries. His daughter, noticing his silence, grows distant, fearing his role. The crowd, from the vendor who nods to the child who stares, is the spectacle's fuel. Their presence makes the punishment real. Their fear a chain that binds the empire. A few, like a woman who slips sunwater, show pity, but their kindness is a whisper against the roar of justice. The gaze of the people was the spectacle's power, turning torture into a communal act. It was a theater where every onlooker played a part, their silence a vote for order. Sun's story reminds us that the empire's justice was not just enforced but displayed. Its pain a performance that shaped millions. The public stage was a mirror, reflecting a society bound by fear and duty. Its gaze a force as sharp as any whip. Let's press on, deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await. Each a piece of an empire's unyielding order. The candle's glow is a quiet friend, its light a steady guide as we pause in the shadowed heart of ancient China's justice. The night is still, but beneath its calm lies the weight of lives shaped by duty and pain. Tonight we turn to the executioner, the man who wielded the empire's tools of torture, yet carried their burden in silence. This chapter explores his role, his humanity, and the stories that reveal him as a man. Not a monster tale of obligation that cuts as deeply as any blade. Picture a small town in the Song dynasty. Around 1180 CE, its streets quiet as dusk settles. In a modest hut, a man named Duan Wei sits, sharpening a bamboo staff by lamplight. Duan, a fictional executioner, serves the local magistrate, tasked with delivering punishments, whips, brands. The qing. Tonight, he prepares for a flogging. A thief sentenced to 20 lashes. His hands are steady, but his eyes are heavy, the weight of his role a constant companion. The staff's polished surface reflects the candle, a reminder of the pain it will inflict. The executioner was a vital cog in the empire's justice, a figure both feared and necessary. He wielded the bastion, tightened the ropes or pressed the branding iron, his skill ensuring the punishment fit the magistrate's decree. Yet he was no sadist. He was a man, often poor, chosen for his strength or loyalty. His work was steady floggings for theft, qangs for fraud, rare executions for treason, but its toll was invisible. He lived on the town's edge, respected for his duty, shunned for his deeds. His life a balance between survival and guilt. Duan's day begins at dawn. The thief, a young man named Dao, bound to a platform. The crowd gathers, their murmurs a familiar hum. Duan raises the staff, each strike precise, Dao's cries piercing the air. By the 10th lash, blood stains the platform, and Duan pauses, his breath steady but his heart uneasy. He finishes, unties Dao, and steps back, his role complete. The magistrate nods, the crowd disperses, but Duan lingers, the thief's pain, a weight he carries home. At night, he sees Dao's face, joining others in a gallery of memories he cannot escape. The executioner's role was shaped by the empire's philosophy. Confucianism demanded order, and Duan was its hand, correcting through pain. Legalism saw him as a tool, his strikes deterring crime across the empire. Dao's theft was minor, born of hunger, but the system demands examples. Duan doesn't judge. He acts his staff a bridge between law and life. Yet each punishment chips at him. His humanity a quiet rebellion against the monster others see. Duan's story touches his family. His wife Ying mends clothes to supplement his wage, her hands trembling when he returns silent. Their daughter, Mei, hears whispers of the flogger at school, her friends pulling away. Duan teaches her to read, hoping she escape his path, but the town's scorn follows her. He drinks rice wine to dull the faces. Dao, a branded woman, a chained rebel, each one a scar on his soul. The executioner's life is a punishment of its own. His duty a chain he cannot break. The crowd, watching Dao's flogging, sees Duan as the law's arm, their fear of him reinforcing the empire's grip. A merchant relieved it's not him, pays his taxes promptly. A mother whispers to her son, obey, or face that man. Yet some, like a vendor who slips Duan a bun, see his burden, their kindness a flicker in his shadowed world. The executioner was a man, but the crowd's gaze made him a symbol, his humanity buried under their dread. Duan's role was not unique. Across dynasties, men like him, blacksmiths, farmers, soldiers, became executioners, their lives shaped by necessity. A Qin dynasty brander, a Tang rope twister, or a Ming headsman all carried the same weight, their hands stained by duty, their hearts heavy with guilt. The executioner was the empire's shadow, his work upholding order while eroding his soul. Duan's story reminds us that justice was not just inflicted but born, its pain shared by those who delivered it. The executioner was no monster, but a man caught in the empire's machine, his humanity a quiet protest against his role. Duan's life, like the tools he wielded, was a testament to a system that punished all who touched it. His story is a pause, a moment to see the hand behind the whip, the heart behind the blade, in a world bound by order and fear. Let's continue. Deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a thread in an empire's unyielding will. The candle's flame is a gentle whisper, its light a soft bridge to the past, as we linger in the shadowed heart of ancient China's justice. The night is quiet, but its silence holds the echoes of lives shattered by the empire's hand. Tonight, we pause to hear the stories of the condemned, not just their punishments, but the human cost that lingered long after the pain faded. This chapter weaves the tales of those who endured the empire's tortures, their broken lives a mirror to its relentless order, a story of loss, resilience, and the weight of survival. Picture a village in the Tang dynasty. Around 800 CE, its rice fields golden under a fading sun. In a small hut, a woman named Fan Zhu sits, her hands trembling as she tries to weave a basket. Fan, a fictional farmer's wife, was once bound to a board of thorns for hiding grain from tax collectors, a desperate act to feed her children. The spikes left her back scarred, her strength sapped. But the deeper wounds are unseen: her pride, her place in the village, her hope, all broken by the empire's justice. Her story is one of many, each a thread in a tapestry of suffering. The condemned were not just criminals but people, mothers, brothers, dreamers whose lives were reshaped by torture. The Kang's shame, the whip's scars, the pit's darkness, these were not fleeting pains but forces that fractured families and futures. Fan's punishment was brief, 3 days on the board, but its ripples endure. Her husband, Lei, works alone in the fields, his back bent under the weight of their debt. Their son Bo, now 14, dropped his studies to help, his dreams of scholarship gone. The village, once warm, now whispers of Fan's greed, their trust lost. Fan's ordeal began in a cold cell, the spikes biting as she lay strapped down. She thought of her children, hungry and waiting, and held silent, refusing to name others who hid grain. The pain broke her body, but the confession they sought never came. Released, she returned to a life that no longer fit. Her hands, once deft, fumble with reeds, the scars on her back aching with every move. At night, she wakes from dreams of the board, her heart racing. Lei holds her, but his own grief watching his wife suffer. Their life unravel keeps him silent. Other stories echo hers. In a Han Dynasty town, a man named Qiao, branded for theft, wanders, his scarred arm a barrier to work. His sister sells her dowry to feed him, her marriage prospects fading. In a Song Dynasty prison, a poet, gagged for dissent, loses her voice. Her husband smuggling her verses to keep her legacy alive. Each punishment whipped chain, Linky left survivors, their lives a patchwork of loss. The condemned were not just punished, they were remade, their identities tied to the empire's mark. The empire's philosophy justified this cost. Confucianism saw punishment as reform, the condemned suffering a path to redemption. Legalism cared only for order, the broken lives a price for stability. Fan's act, born of survival, was a crime against the emperor's harmony, her pain, a lesson for others. The system didn't see her as a mother but as a fault to be fixed, its tools blind to the human cost. The tortures, from the cage's shame to the 5 pains horror, were designed to break, and break they did. Scattering pieces across generations, the families of the condemned bore the weight. Lei's silence hides his shame, unable to protect. Fan Bo's anger grows, his respect for the law replaced by resentment. In other homes, wives sold heirlooms, children worked fields, siblings fled villages, all to survive the empire's judgment. The crowd, watching Fan's trial or keep branding, upheld the system, their fear of punishment silencing their pity. A neighbor who shuns Fan, a merchant who avoids Qiao, their choices cement the torture's power, making the condemned outcasts in their own world. Yet resilience flickered. Fan weaves, slow but steady, teaching Bo to laugh again. Qiao's sister prays for him, her love unbroken. The poet's verses, smuggled out, inspire a quiet rebellion. The condemned survived, their broken lives a testament to human strength. Their stories a whisper against the empire's roar. They carried scars, physical, emotional, but also hope, a fragile flame that burned through the darkest nights. The executioners, too, were touched. A guard who bound Fan to the board drinks to forget her eyes, his own family strained by his role. The magistrate, blind to Fan's truth, moves on, his justice a machine that grinds lives to dust. The broken lives of the condemned were the empire's shadow, their pain a cost hidden in plain sight. Each story Fan's Qiao's the poet's, a reminder that justice was not just inflicted but lived, its weight carried by those who endured. The condemned were the empire's canvas, their lives painted with the tools of torture, their stories a map of its cost. Fan's trembling hands, Qiao's wandering steps, the poet's silenced voice, they remind us that the empire's order was built on human sacrifice, its justice a force that broke more than bodies. Their broken lives are a quiet cry, echoing through time, asking us to see the people behind the pain. Let's continue. Deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's unyielding will. The candle's flame holds steady, its glow a quiet beacon as we wander through the intricate web of ancient China's justice. The night is calm, but beneath its surface lies a current of fear, a force that bound millions to the emperor's will. Tonight, we explore how torture served as a warning, a tool of social control that shaped behavior through dread. This chapter unveils the strategy behind the pain, its role in the empire's stability, and the human stories that reveal its richer tale of fear woven into the heart of a civilization. Picture a market town in the Ming dynasty, around 1450 CE, its streets alive with the scent of roasted pork and the clink of coins. At the town's edge, a wooden kang encircles the neck of a man named Lu Kang, a fictional potter accused of tax evasion. Lu shuffles through the crowd, the heavy board carved with his crime, his head bowed under its weight. The townsfolk glance, some sneering, others hurrying past. Lu's punishment is not just for him, it's a warning to all, a living billboard of the empire's watchful eye. The Kang's shame is a message: defy the law, and this will be you. Torture as a warning was a deliberate strategy, its public nature amplifying its power. The Kang, the whip, the wheelage was a spectacle, staged in markets, squares, or city gates where crowds could see. The empire didn't just punish, it performed, turning pain into a lesson. Private tortures, like the pit or water drop, served interrogation, but public ones shaped society, their visibility ensuring that fear reached every corner. The goal was control, not just of the criminal but of the millions who watched. Their obedience, the empire's foundation. Lu's Kang is a daily ordeal. The board chafes his neck, his arms ache from its weight, and hunger gnaws as he relies on passersby for scraps. His crime was minor, a delayed tax payment, born of a poor season, but the empire demands examples. The crowd's stares burn worse than the wood, their whispers a chorus of judgment. A merchant, seeing Lu, pays his own taxes early. A farmer, passing by, warns his sons to obey. The Kang works, its shame a ripple that touches hundreds, each onlooker a link in the chain of control. The strategy was rooted in the empire's philosophy. Legalism, with its focus on deterrence, saw torture as a tool to prevent crime, each punishment a barrier against chaos. Confucianism used shame to align behavior, the public gaze a mirror for society's values. Lu's Kang, like the whip's crack or the brand's sear, was a warning that harmony required sacrifice. The empire's scale, millions spread across vast lands, made fear essential. Its tortures a language that spoke louder than edicts, binding a nation through dread. Lu's story fractures his world. He was 50, a potter whose vases graced local temples. The Kang's shame drives his customers away, his shop empty. His daughter, Mei, sells her pottery to feed him, her marriage prospects fading as the town whispers of the tax cheat. Lu's wife, worn by worry, falls ill, their savings gone to bribes that failed to free him. Released, Lu returns to a life in tatters, his hands too weak to mold clay, his spirit crushed. The Kang's warning worked, but its cost was a family's ruin. The executioners, like one named Chen, carry the strategist's weight. Chen locks Lu's Kang, his hands steady but his heart uneasy. He sees his own father in Lu, a man who struggled with taxes. Chen's son avoids his gaze, ashamed of his role, and Chen drinks to forget the faces he shamed. The crowd, from the vendor who jeers to the child who stares, is the warning's amplifier. Their presence makes the Kang a lesson, their fear the empire's triumph. A few, like a woman who slips Lu rice, resists the narrative. But their kindness is drowned by the crowd's complicity. The empire's warnings were not random. A Song dynasty flogging, a Qing dynasty branding, a Tang dynasty wheel, all were staged. To maximize impact, their timing and place chosen for crowds. The Kang's slow parade, the Linky's horror, the pit's whispered rumors, each was a story told to control, its pain a script for obedience. The condemned, like Lu, were props. In this theater, their lives secondary to the message. The empire's genius was in its reach, turning every citizen into a watcher, every punishment into a chain. Torture as a warning was the empire's heartbeat, its pain a pulse that kept order alive. Lu's story, like those of the whipped, branded, or chained, reminds us that the empire's control was not just enforced but felt, its fear a force that shaped daily life. The Kang was a whisper of power, its weight a reminder that obedience was the price of belonging. The warning's legacy is in the lives it touched, the choices it forced, the silence it demanded from a nation. Let's continue deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's unyielding will. The candle's light is a faint pulse, its glow a quiet guide as we tread the treacherous paths of ancient China's justice. The night is heavy, the air thick with the tension of defiance crushed. Tonight, we explored the tortures reserved for rebels, those who dared challenge the emperor's rule, and the political punishments that silenced their voices. This chapter unveils the empire's wrath, its tools of control, and the human stories that bear the cost of rebellion, a tale of courage met with unrelenting force. Picture a fortress in the Song dynasty, around 1120 CE, its walls looming over a windswept plain. In a shadowed cell, a man named Zhou Ren kneels, his wrists bound to a wooden frame, a finger press clamped around his hands. Zhou, a fictional scholar, wrote pamphlets urging reform, criticizing the emperor's advisors. His words sparked whispers of rebellion, earning him a charge of sedition. The finger press, its screws tightening, is his punishment, a tool to crush his defiance and extract names of allies. The cell smells of iron and fear. Each turn of the screw a demand for silence. The finger press was a precise torture used for political crimes, treason, dissent, or conspiracy. Wooden or metal, it clamped the fingers, screws twisting to crush bone and nerve. The pain was excruciating, targeting the hands that wrote or fought, a symbolic attack on rebellion's tools. Political punishments, from the press to Linky, were harsher. Their severity, a message to the empire, challenged the Son of Heaven, and suffer beyond imagining. The goal was not just to punish but to erase, to root out dissent before it spread. Zhou's ordeal begins as the screws tighten, his fingers throbbing, then screaming with pain. He bites his lip, blood trickling, trying to hold his resolve. The guards, their faces cold, demand names, but Zhou thinks of his students, inspired by his words, and stays silent. The pain blurs his thoughts, his hands a fire of agony. By the second day, a bone cracks, and he gasps, naming a friend to stop the torment. The press is loosened, but Zhou's spirit fractures, his betrayal a wound deeper than the pain. He's exiled, his hands useless, his cause lost. Political punishments were the empire's iron fist, rooted in legalist thought. Dissent threatened, the state's foundation, and tortures like the press chains or 5 pains were its defense. Confucianism, though preaching loyalty, justified harsh measures to protect harmony. Rebels, seen as disruptors of the cosmic order. Zhou's pamphlets, born of hope for justice, were a spark the empire couldn't allow. The finger press doesn't seek truth. It demands submission. It screws a tool to crush the seeds of change. Zhou's story devastates his world. His wife, Ning, sells their books to survive, raising their daughter alone, her heart heavy with Zhou's absence. The friend he named, arrested, faces the same press, their trust broken. Zhou's students burn their notes, their dreams of reform silenced. The town, hearing of his exile, doubles their loyalty oaths, fear replacing hope. The cost of rebellion is in these losses: Ning's solitude, a friend's betrayal, a generation's silence, all crushed by the empire's hand. The executioners, like one named Liang, feel the weight. Liang turns the screws, but Zhou's scholars' hands remind him of his own father, a teacher. He avoids his son's eyes, ashamed of his role, his wages stained with guilt. The magistrate, satisfied with Zhou's confession, gains favor, blind to the pamphlet's truth. The crowd, though absent from the cell, upholds the system, their fear of rebellion enabling the press's cruelty. A few, like a student who hides Zhou's words, resist, but their courage is a whisper against the empire's roar. Political punishments were a theater of power, their severity a warning to all. The Linky's horror, the pit's oblivion, the press's precision, each was a message to scholars, generals, or peasants who dreamed of change. The empire's genius was in its foresight, using torture to snuff out rebellion before it grew, its pain a wall around the throne. Zhou's story, like those of countless rebels, reminds us that the cost of defiance was not just personal but communal, its price paid by all who dared hope. The finger press was a whisper of the empire's wrath, its screws a reminder that rebellion was a fire it would extinguish at any cost. Zhou's broken hands, his exiled heart, are a testament to a system that punished not just the body but the spirit of change. The cost of rebellion was a shadow that fell across the empire, its torches a chain that bound a nation's dreams. Let's continue deeper into the shadows, where more devices and lives await, each a piece of an empire's unyielding will. The candle's flame glows softly, its light a tender guide through the quiet night, drawing us deeper into the shadowed heart of ancient China's justice. The air is still, heavy with the unspoken grief of those who stood in the background, their lives forever changed by the empire's hand. Tonight, we turn away from the devices of torture to focus on the families of the condemned, the silent sufferers who bore the weight of punishment's aftermath. This chapter weaves their stories, revealing the human side of a system that punished not just individuals but entire households, a tale of love, loss, and resilience in the shadow of cruelty. Picture a small village in the Song dynasty, around 1190 CE, its thatched roofs glowing under a crescent moon. In a modest hut, a woman named Chen Hua sits by a flickering oil lamp, her hands trembling as she mends a torn robe. Her husband, Liang Jun, a fictional fisherman, was sentenced to wear a qing for a month after being accused of poaching in a noble's river. The qing's heavy wooden board humiliated him, but its true cost falls on Chen Hui and their 2 children, who now face hunger, shame, and a future dimmed by the empire's justice. Their story is one of countless others, families caught in the ripples of punishment, their lives reshaped by a system that saw only the crime, not the human cost. The families of the condemned were the unseen victims of ancient China's tortures. The qing's public shame, the whip scars. The pit's isolation, each punishment reached beyond the individual, tearing at the bonds of kinship. Chen, whose husband was no poacher, a rival fisherman, jealous of his skill, falsely accused, went him to claim his fishing spot. The Kang was meant to correct Liang Jun, but it broke his family instead. Chen Hua sells her mother's silver hairpin to buy rice. Her children skip meals, and the villagers whispers, poacher's wife, follow her like a shadow. The empire's justice, precise in its cruelty, punished the guilty and innocent alike, its weight falling heaviest on those left behind. Chen Hua's days are a blur of survival. She visits Liang Jun in the market square, where he shuffles under the Kang's weight, his neck raw, his eyes dull. She feeds him spoonfuls of gruel, her heart aching as passers-by jeer. Their daughter, Mei, just 10, helps by gathering firewood, her small hands blistered. Their son, Bo, 12, fishes alone, his catch is meager without his father's skill. The family's hut, once filled with laughter, is quiet now. The silence broken only by Chen Hua's soft prayers for Liang Jun. Release. She hides her tears, but at night, alone, she weeps, fearing the man she loves will return a stranger. Other families echo their pain. In a Tang dynasty city, a merchant's wife, widowed by the Five Pains, sells her shop to feed her children. Their father's treason a stain they cannot escape. In a Han dynasty village, a branded thief's sister works as a servant, her dowry gone to buy his medicine, her dreams of marriage lost. A poet's husband, smuggling her silenced verses, risks his own life to preserve her voice. Each torch, horror, the pit's oblivion, the whip's sting left families fractured, their lives a mosaic of sacrifice and survival. The empire's justice was a stone dropped in a pond, its ripples drowning those closest to the condemned. The system's philosophy justified this collateral pain. Confucianism, with its emphasis on family as the root of society, saw punishment as a lesson for all, the family's suffering a spur to reform. Legalism, colder still, cared only for order, the broken homes a necessary cost to deter crime. Liang Chen's poaching, though false, was a crack in the empire's harmony, and the Kang was its correction. The system didn't see Chen Hu, hunger, maize, blisters, or Bo's lonely nights. It saw only the need to control, its tortures blind to the human toll. The families, bound by love, paid the price of a justice that valued stability over mercy. Chen Hua's struggle is a daily battle. The village, once kind, now shuns her, their fear of association stronger than their pity. A neighbor who once shared tea now avoids her gaze, believing the rival's lies. Chen Hua barters her weaving for scraps, her hands aching from long hours. Mei, bright and curious, stops asking for stories, her childhood fading under the weight of chores. Bo, angry at the world, skips stones across the river, dreaming of confronting the rival who betrayed his father. The Kang's wood presses on Liang Jun, but its true burden falls on his family. Their lives bent under its shadow, the executioners, to see the family's pain. A guard named Wei, who locks Liang Chen's Kang, watches Chen Hua's visits, her quiet strength reminding him of his own wife. He slips her an extra bowl of gruel, his small rebellion against duty, but at home, he drinks to forget her tearful eyes. The magistrate, distant in his robes, sees only the Kang's success, unaware of the rival's deceit, or Chen Hua's suffering. The crowd, passing Liang Jun in the market, upholds the system, there stares and whispers the Kang's true power. A few, like a vendor who offers Mei a peach, show kindness, but their gestures are fleeting against the tide of judgment. The family's resilience is a quiet miracle. Chen Hua weaves, her fingers steady despite exhaustion, teaching Mei to sing, to keep her spirits high. Bo learns to fish, his catch is small but proud, a gift for his mother. In other homes, a branded man's sister stitches late, saving for his return. A poet's husband hides her words, risking all for her legacy. These acts of love, small but fierce, defy the empire's shadow, their strength a light in the darkness. The families of the condemned were not just victims but survivors, their lives a testament to the human spirit's endurance. When Liang Jun is freed, he returns a changed man, his shoulders stooped, his laughter gone. Chen Hua embraces him, but the villagers' scorn lingers, their fishing spot claimed by the rival. The family moves to a distant town, starting anew, their bond, their only wealth. Their story, like those of countless families, is the human side of justice, a reminder that every torture, from the Kang's shame to the Linki's horror, struck beyond the condemned, wounding those who loved them. The empire's order was built on these sacrifices, its stability a pyramid of broken homes. The families in the shadow were the empire's silent cost, their pain a hidden ledger of its justice. Chen Hua's trembling hands, Mei's lost stories, Bo's lonely nights, they remind us that the empire's tortures were not just physical but deeply human. Their impact felt in the quiet moments of a family's struggle. Their resilience is a whisper of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest shadows, love endures, binding what the empire sought to break. Let's continue, deeper into the shadows, where more stories await, each a thread in an empire's unyielding will. The candle's flame burns low, its gentle glow a quiet companion in the stillness of the night, guiding us through the shadowed corridors of ancient China's justice. The air feels heavy, laden with questions that linger like mist over a river. Tonight, we pause to reflect, to ask a question that echoes through the centuries: was the punishment just? This chapter steps back from the devices of torture to explore the moral framework that justified them, the philosophies that shaped their use, and the human stories that challenged their righteousness. A tale of justice weighed against the cost of cruelty. Picture a scholar's study in the Tang dynasty, around 820 CE. Its walls lined with scrolls, the scent of ink and sandalwood thicken the air. A man named Wu Shen, a fictional philosopher, sits at a low table, his brush poised over silk. Wu has spent years studying Confucian texts, but tonight, his mind is troubled. He's witnessed a public flogging in the market. A young woman, accused of theft, lashed with a bamboo whip until she collapsed. The crowd nodded. The magistrate declared justice served. But Wu wonders, did her punishment fit her crime, or was it a cruelty dressed as righteousness? His question is ours, a lens through which to view the empire's tortures. The justice of ancient China was rooted in two philosophies, Confucianism and legalism, each offering a rationale for the tortures we've explored. Confucianism saw society as a family, with the emperor as its father, his subjects bound by duty. Crime was a betrayal of this harmony, and punishment, whether the Kang's shame or the Linki's horror, was a correction, a way to restore balance. The whip's sting, the pit's darkness, the board of thorns bite. These were lessons meant to guide the wayward back to virtue. Legalism, colder and more pragmatic, cared little for morality. It saw humans as selfish, order achievable only through fear. The finger press, the 5 pains, the taut rope, these were tools to deter. Their cruelty a necessity to keep the empire's millions in line. Wu Shen's unease stems from a woman named Ting Lan, the flogged thief. Ting, fictional seamstress, stole a bolt of cloth to feed her starving brother, a desperate act in a famine-stricken year. Her punishment was 30 lashes, each strike tearing her skin, her cries echoing in the square. The magistrate, following the legal code, saw her theft as a threat to order, her pain a warning to others. Confucianism justified the flogging as a lesson in duty. Legalism saw it as a deterrent, her scars a message to the crowd. But who, watching her collapse, sees a woman pushed to crime by hunger, her punishment a weight that crushes more than it corrects? Was this justice, or merely power? Ting's story is a window into the moral tension. She was 25, a woman whose needlework adorned local temples. Her brother, ill and frail, depended on her, their parents lost to the famine. The stolen cloth, sold for a handful of rice, was her only way to keep him alive. The flogging leaves her scarred, her strength gone, her brother unfed. She returns to a village that shuns her, their faith in the law outweighing their pity. Her brother dies, and Ting, broken, takes to begging, her life a shadow of what it was. The whip's justice restored order, but at what cost? Wu Shen, writing by lamplight, grapples with this, his brush trembling as he questions the system he's devoted his life to. The empire's tortures were not random cruelties but calculated acts, each justified by the need for stability. The Kang's public shame taught communities to police themselves. The pit's isolation silenced rebels before they could spark unrest. The Linki's horror ensured that treason was unthinkable. Yet these punishments often struck beyond the crime. Ting's theft was born of necessity, not malice. Yet the whip didn't distinguish. A branded man, punished for a rival's lie, lost his livelihood. A chained poet, gagged for truth, saw her family suffer. The system's moral claim restoring harmony, deterring chaos, faltered when the innocent paid, when families broke, when lives were lost for minor faults. Wu Shen's question echoes through other stories. In a Qin dynasty village, a farmer, bound to a taut rope for tax evasion, confessed to save his children, his false words condemning others. Was his punishment just, when hunger drove his act? In a Ming dynasty square, a Kang wearer, ashamed for slander, was betrayed by a jealous neighbor. Did her humiliation serve harmony, or merely the powerful? The empire's justice was a machine, its gears grinding without pause, its moral foundation duty, order blinding it to the human cost. The tortures, from the water drop's quiet cruelty to the 5 pains spectacle, were tools of a system that valued control over compassion, stability over fairness. The families of the condemned, as we've seen, bore the weight of this moral failing. Ting's brother, dying without her care, was a victim of the whip as surely as she was, a branded man's sister, selling her future to feed him, paid for a justice that didn't seek truth. The executioners, too, questioned the system. A guard, tightening a finger press, saw his own father in the prisoner's eyes, his duty a betrayal of his heart. Even the crowd, complicit in their watching, felt the earnest whispers of pity, fleeting acts of kindness, a quiet rebellion against the system's claim of righteousness. The moral question, was the punishment just, was rarely asked aloud. Scholars like Wu Shen risked censure for doubting the emperor's will, yet their writings, preserved in secret, suggest a tension. a flicker of doubt in a system that seemed unassailable. Confucianism's call for benevolence clashed with the whip's brutality. Legalism's efficiency ignored the broken lives left in its wake. The tortures, justified as necessary, often served the powerful magistrates, rivals, accusers more than the empire itself. Qing's flogging protected the cloth merchant's wealth, not the cosmic order. The Kang's shame silenced critics, not just criminals. Justice, in practice, was often a tool of control, its morality a mask for power. Wu Shen's reflections, penned in the quiet of his study, never reached the magistrate. He hides his scroll, fearing accusations of disloyalty, but his question lingers. Ting, begging in the streets, carries the answer in her scars. Her brother's absence, a silent indictment. The empire's justice was a towering structure. It torches the stones that held it up, but its foundation morality crumbled under the weight of human suffering. The whip, the Kang, the pit, they restored order, but at a cost that Wu and we cannot ignore. The echoes of morality resonate through Ting's story, through the countless lives touched by the empire's hand. They ask us to weigh the balance against humanity, order against empathy. The tortures were not just acts but choices, each one a question of what justice means when it breaks the very people it claims to protect. Wu Shen's doubt, Ting's pain, the family's grief, they are a reminder that the empire's justice was not a monolith but a human creation, flawed and fragile, its morality a shadow that shifts with time. Let's continue deeper into the shadows where more stories await, each a thread in an empire's unyielding will. The candle's flame is a faint whisper now, its glow a fragile thread weaving through the darkness, guiding us toward the twilight of our journey through ancient China's shadowed justice. The night is deep, the air thick with the weight of centuries, carrying the echoes of pain and power. Tonight, we step back to trace the legacy of the empire's tortures, the lessons they left behind, and the human stories that bridge their cruelty to our present. This chapter reflects on the enduring impact of devices like the Kang, the whip, and the linky, asking what they teach us about justice, humanity, and the cost of control, a tale of scars that speak across time. Picture a quiet village in the Ming dynasty, around 1500 CE, its streets lit by the soft glow of lanterns swaying in the breeze. In a small courtyard, an old woman named Ma Yu sits, her hands weathered from years of weaving, her eyes distant as she tells her grandchildren a story. It's not a tale of heroes or dragons, but of her father, a man punished with a Kang for a crime he didn't commit. The heavy wooden board broke his spirit, and its shame reshaped their family, forcing them to flee their home. Ma Yu's voice trembles, but she speaks, passing down a lesson carved in pain. The empire's justice was a force that spared no one, its cruelty a shadow that lingered long after the punishment ended. The tortures of ancient China, the bamboo whips, sting, the pits, darkness, the linky's horror were not fleeting acts but forces that etched themselves into the empire's soul. They were tools of control, designed to maintain order in a vast, sprawling realm, but their legacy is in the lives they touched, the communities they shaped, and the questions they left behind. The Kang's public shame taught villagers to fear the law, its weight a warning that echoed through generations. The finger press, crushing a rebel's hands, silenced dissent, its pain a barrier to change. Each device, from the board of thorns to the 5 pains, was a chapter in a story of power, its lessons written in blood and fear. Ma Yu's father, a fictional farmer named Ma Tao, was accused of stealing rice during a drought, a charge fabricated by a rival seeking his land. The Kang, locked around his neck for weeks, turned him into a spectacle, his name synonymous with shame. Ma Yu, then a child, watched her father shuffle through the market, her mother selling their ox to buy him food. The family fled when he was freed, starting over in a distant village, but the Kang's shadow followed. Ma Tao never smiled again, his hands trembling as he worked fields that weren't his. Ma Yu grew up with his silence, her childhood shaped by a punishment that struck her family as surely as it struck her father. The legacy of these tortures was not just personal but societal. The empire's justice system, rooted in Confucianism and legalism, created a culture of obedience where fear of the whip or the pit kept millions in line. Villages like Ma Yu's policed themselves, neighbors reporting neighbors to avoid the law's wrath. The public spectacles, floggings, brandings, executions bound communities through shared dread, their silence a testament to the system's reach. Yet this order came at a cost. Families like Ma Yu's were torn apart, their futures dimmed by punishments that often targeted the innocent. The tortures, meant to protect harmony, sowed division, mistrust, and loss. Their legacy, a fractured society held together by fear. Other stories mirror Ma Yu's. In a Tang dynasty city, a branded merchant's daughter grew up shunned, her father's scar a barrier to her marriage. In a Song dynasty prison, a chained poet's son abandoned his studies, his mother's silence a wound that never healed. The 5 pains horror, witnessed by crowds, taught generations that rebellion was futile, its terror a lesson passed down in hushed tones. These stories, whispered in huts and markets, and became the empire's oral history. their pain a warning that shaped behavior long after the dynasties fell. The torch's legacy was in these voices, their lessons a mix of caution and sorrow, urging obedience while mourning its price. The philosophies that justified these acts left their own mark. Confucianism's vision of harmony through correction created a moral framework where pain was a teacher, the Qing's shame a path to redemption. Legalism's colder logic saw cruelty as necessity. The Linki's cuts a wall against chaos, but both failed to account for the human toll, the families broken, the innocents punished, the executioners haunted by their roles. Ma Dao's Qing was a Confucian lesson meant to restore his place in society, but it exiled him instead. The whip strikes, a legalist deterrent, silenced crime but also hope. The torch's moral claim crumbled under the weight of their cost, their legacy a question. Can justice that destroys be just? The executioners, too, carried the legacy. A guard who wielded the bamboo whip, his hands calloused from years of duty, passed down stories of the faces he couldn't forget, his children wary of his trade. A man who turned the fingerpress's screws taught his son to avoid the law, knowing its cruelty firsthand. These men, seen as monsters, were human, their lives shaped by the same system that punished Ma Tao or Ting Lan. Their stories, rarely told, are part of the legacy, a reminder that the empire's justice wounded all who touched it. From the condemned to those who enforced their pain, the crowd, complicit in their watching, carried the lessons home. A farmer, seeing Ma Dao's Qing, paid his taxes despite hunger, fearing the same fate. A child, watching a flogging, grew up obedient, the whip's crack a memory that guided her choices. Yet some resisted the Narifta, a woman who slipped a branded man rice, a boy who hid a poet's verses. These acts of defiance, small but brave, are part of the legacy too, a flicker of humanity that challenged the empire's cruelty. The torch's lessons were not just fear but resilience, the human spirit enduring despite the weight of justice. Ma Yu's story, told to her grandchildren, is a bridge to our time. The Qing is gone, the Linki a memory, but their legacy lingers in how we view justice, power, and punishment. The empire's torches teach us that control, when built on fear, fractures as much as it unites. Ma Yu's father, broken by a wooden board, reminds us that justice must see the human behind the crime, lest it destroy more than it protects. The whip's scars, the pit's darkness, they ask us to question systems that prioritize order over empathy, to seek a justice that heals rather than harms. As we linger with Ma Yu, her voice soft but steady, we see the legacy of cruelty in her eyes that have seen pain but also love, loss but also hope. Her story, like those of the whipped, the chained, the forgotten, is a lesson from the past, urging us to build a world where justice lifts rather than crushes, where punishment restores rather than ruins. The empire's torches, brutal as they were, left behind not just scars but wisdom, a call to remember the human cost of power. Connections with today, modern reflections. The candle's flame flickers, its glow a fading whisper in the quiet night, guiding us to the final chapter of our journey through ancient China's shadowed justice. The air is still, but it hums with the echoes of a past that feels closer than we might think. Tonight, we bridge the centuries, drawing connections between the tortures of the empire and the world we know today. This chapter reflects on the lessons of the Qing, the whip, and the Linki, exploring how their legacy shapes our understanding of justice, power, and humanity, a tale of reflection that binds the past to the present, urging us to listen to history's whispers. Picture a modern city, its streets alive with the glow of screens and the hum of traffic, a world far removed from the dusty squares of the Thames or Song dynasties. In a small apartment, a woman named Li Mei sits, scrolling through news on her phone. She reads of overcrowded prisons, public shaming on social media, and debates over harsh punishments in distant lands. Li Mei, a fictional teacher, pauses, her mind drifting to stories her grandmother told, tales of a great-grandfather punished with a Qing for a crime he didn't commit, his life and family broken by the empire's justice. The devices are gone, but their shadows linger. And Li Mei wonders how much has changed, and what do those ancient tortures teach us now? The tortures of ancient China, the bamboo whip's crack, the pit's suffocating darkness, the link, calculated horror were tools of a specific time, yet their legacy resonates in our modern world. They were designed to control a vast empire, to enforce order through fear, but their impact went deeper, shaping lives, families, and societies in ways that echo today. The Qing's public shame finds a parallel in the digital age, where online shaming can ruin reputations with a single post. The fingerpress's coercion mirrors interrogations that prioritize confessions over truth. The Five Pains spectacle lives in the sensationalized coverage of executions, where suffering becomes a warning. These connections are not exact, but they remind us that the impulses behind those tortures, control, fear, power, persist, wearing new faces in our time. Li Mei's great-grandfather, a fictional merchant named Li Chung, was accused of tax evasion in the Ming dynasty. Around 1480 CE, the Qing, heavy and humiliating, marked him as a cheat. His shuffle through the market a lesson for his village. His daughter, Li Mei's grandmother, grew up in the shadow of that shame, her family's shop abandoned, their name tainted. Li Mei, hearing these stories as a child, felt the weight of her ancestors' pain, a story of injustice that shaped her view of fairness. Today, as she reads of a man counseled online, his livelihood lost to a viral accusation, she sees the Qing's echo a public punishment that destroys without trial, its judgment swift and unforgiving. The empire's tortures were rooted in philosophies that still influence us. Confucianism's emphasis on harmony and duty finds echoes in modern calls for social cohesion, where conformity can silence dissent. Legalism's reliance on fear as a deterrent lives in harsh laws or punitive policies, where punishment overshadows rehabilitation. The whip slashes, meant to correct, parallel prison systems that prioritize retribution over reform. The pit's isolation mirrors solitary confinement, its mental toll, a modern shadow of ancient cruelty. These connections ask us to question, do our systems, like the empire's, value control over compassion, order over humanity? Li Mei's reflection deepens as she thinks of justice today. The empire's tortures often struck the innocent. Li Qiang's Kang was a rival's revenge, not a fair penalty. Modern parallels abound, wrongful convictions, biased sentencing, or punishments that hit the vulnerable hardest. The Board of Thorns, breaking a blacksmith's body, reminds her of overworked prisoners, their health sacrificed to labor. The water drop's psychological torment echoes in techniques that break minds without touching bodies. The empire's justice, blind to the human cost, challenges us to ask whether our own systems see the people behind the crimes, or merely the need to punish. The families of the condemned, like Li Qiang's, carried the empire's weight, their lives fractured by a system that didn't pause to consider them. Li Mei's grandmother sold her dowry to survive, her childhood lost to her father's shame. Today, families of the incarcerated face similar burdens: lost income, social stigma, children growing up without parents. The Qing's ripple effect, shunning a family for one member's crime, mirrors the collateral damage of modern justice, where a sentence can impoverish or isolate entire households. These stories, ancient and modern, urge us to build systems that punish without destroying, that correct without crushing. The executioners, too, left a legacy. A guard who wielded the taut rope, haunted by his prisoners' cries, finds echoes in modern officers who grapple with the moral cost of their roles. The empire's executioners were men, not monsters, their humanity strained by duty. Today, those who enforce justice, guards, judges, policymakers, face similar tensions, their decisions shaping lives in ways that linger. Li Mei, reading of a prison guard's burnout, sees the guard who branded her ancestor, his hands stained by necessity. The lesson is clear. Justice's enforcers are human, and their burden must be considered in the systems we create. The crowd, complicit in the empire's spectacles, has its modern counterpart. The onlookers who watch the flogging, their silence upholding the law, are not unlike those who share a shaming post or nod at a harsh sentence. The gaze of the people, then and now, amplifies punishment's power, turning pain into a communal. But yet, the empire also saw resistance: a vendor slipping rice to a Qing wearer, a student hiding a poet's verses. Today, acts of compassion vacates for reform. Volunteers aiding prisoners' families carry that same spirit, a reminder that humanity can challenge even the harshest systems. Li Mei's great-grandfather's story is a bridge to today, his Qing a symbol of justice that punishes beyond the crime. The empire's tortures teach us that fear-based control, while effective, fractures as much as it unites. The Linki's terror, the pit's oblivion, the whip's scars, they warn us to question systems that prioritize power over people, to seek justice that heals rather than harms. Li Mei, closing her phone, feels a resolve to teach her students these lessons, to share her ancestors' story as a call for fairness, for empathy, for a world where punishment doesn't break the innocent. The legacy of ancient China's tortures is not just in their cruelty but in their questions. Was the Qing's shame worth the family it ruined? Did the Five Pains horror justify the fear it spread? These questions live in our debates over prison reform, public shaming, or the ethics of punishment. The empire's justice, with all its precision and power, left scars that whisper to us: see the human behind the crime. Weigh the cost of control. Build a justice that lifts rather than crushes. Li Mei's reflection, like Ma Yu's stories, is a thread connecting past to present, urging us to listen to history's lessons. As we reach the end of this journey, the candle's light fades, but the stories remain: Li Qiang's Kang, Ting Lan's whip, Zhou Ran's broken hands. They are a legacy of pain but also of resilience, of questions that challenge us to do better. If you've been moved by this dive into the past, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive, connecting yesterday to today, reminding us that the past still speaks, if we dare to listen. A final whisper. The past speaks to us. The candle's flame is nearly gone now. Its faint glow, a final thread in the stillness of the night, casting long shadows that blend the past with the present. We've journeyed through the dark corridors of ancient China's justice, from the bamboo whip's sharp crack to the Linki's chilling horror, from the Kang's heavy shame to the pit's suffocating void. Tonight, we close our tale with a whisper, a reflection on what these stories of pain, resilience, and humanity mean for us today. This chapter gathers the threads of our journey, weaving them into a final message from the past, asking us to listen to its lessons and carry them forward, a tale of voices that still echo, urging us to build a world where justice heals rather than harms. Picture a quiet evening in a modern home. The soft hum of the world outside, muffled by closed windows. A young man named Zhang Wei sits by a lamp, a history book open before him. Zhang, a fictional student, has been reading about his ancestors, about a great uncle punished in the Song dynasty, around 1170 CE, for a crime he didn't commit. The man, a scribe named Zhang Rui, was bound to a taut rope for questioning a corrupt official, his body stretched until he confessed to lies. The story, passed down through generations, is a whisper in Zhang Wei's ear, a reminder of the empire's justice and its cost. As he reads, he wonders, what does this past, with its whips and chains, ask of him today? Our journey began with the flickering candle, a guide through the empire's punitive world. We met Li Wei, lashed by the bamboo whip, his back scarred for a theft born of desperation. We saw Lady Mei, crushed by the finger press, her silence a defiance that cost her freedom. We walked with Liang Feng, trapped in a cage, his spirit eroded by the crowd's gaze. Each device, the board of thorns, the water drop, the 5 pains, was a tool of control, designed to uphold an empire that spanned millions. But their true legacy is in the lives they touched, the families they broke, the questions they left. Behind Zhang Rui's story, like those before, is a piece of this legacy, a voice that speaks across centuries. The empire's tortures were not mere cruelty but a system, rooted in Confucianism's call for harmony and legalism's demand for order. Find out. The Kang shamed to correct, the Linki terrified to deter, the pit isolated to erase. Yet their cost was human families like Chen Hua's, selling heirlooms to survive, executioners like Duan Wei, haunted by their duty, crowds bound by fear, their silence a chain. Zhang Rui's punishment, a rope that tore his shoulders, was meant to silence dissent, but it also silenced his family's hope. His wife sold their home, his children grew up in shame, and the village, fearing the law, turned away. The empire's justice was a machine, its gears grinding lives to maintain its hum, but its efficiency came at a price. Zhang Wei, reading by lamplight, sees these stories in a new light. The taut rope that broke his great-uncle echoes in modern tales, wrongful convictions, harsh sentences, systems that punish without seeing the human behind the crime. The Kang's shame lives in public shaming, where a single mistake can ruin a life. The 5 pains spectacle finds a shadow in media trials, where suffering becomes a warning. The empire's philosophies, duty, control, fear linger in our debates over justice, from prison reform to the ethics of punishment. Zhang Rui's pain, though centuries old, asks Zhang Wei to question, do we punish to heal, or to harm? Do we seek truth, or merely order? The human stories are the heart of this whisper. Ma Yu, telling her grandchildren of her father's Kang, taught them resilience, a lesson Zhang Wei carries. Ting Lan, whipped for theft, showed the cost of a system that ignores desperation. Zhou Ran, his hands crushed by the finger press, reminds us that silencing dissent wounds more than the rebel. These stories, woven through our journey, are not just relics but mirrors, reflecting our own struggles with fairness, power, and compassion. The empire's tortures, from the whip's sting to the pit's darkness, were tools of a time, but their questions are timeless. What is justice, and who pays its price? The families of the condemned, like Zhang Rui's, bore the heaviest burden. His children, shunned for his crime, grew up with a father's absence, their futures dimmed by a lie. Chen Hua, feeding her Kang-bound husband, lost her laughter to the empire's weight. These families, selling heirlooms, working through grief, showed a strength that defied the system's cruelty. Their resilience is a lesson for today, a call to support those caught in justice's shadow, families of the incarcerated, communities scarred by systemic flaws. Zhang Wei, thinking of his great-uncle, feels a duty to advocate, to ensure justice lifts rather than crushes the executioners, to speak to us. Duan Wei, wielding the whip, was no monster but a man, his guilt a mirror for those who enforce modern laws. The guard who tightened the taut rope, haunted by Zhang Rui's cries, reminds us that justice's enforcers are human, their burden a factor in reform. The crowd, complicit in their watching, finds echoes in our own silence when we ignore injustice, when we let fear guide policy. Yet the empire also saw resistance of vendors rise as students' hidden verses, small acts that live in today's advocates, volunteers, and voices for change. These whispers of defiance urge us to act, to challenge systems that harm, to build a justice that sees the human behind the crime. Zhang Wei closes his book. The candles flame a memory now, but its light lingers in his thoughts. The empire's tortures, the Kang, the Linki, the water drop are gone, but their legacy is alive in our questions about punishment, power, and empathy. Zhang Rui's taut rope, breaking his body, asks Zhang Wei to seek fairness, to question systems that punish without understanding. The past speaks, not in anger but in hope, urging us to learn from its scars. The whips crack, the pit's silence, the Kang's weight. They are warnings, reminders that justice must balance order with humanity, control with compassion. This final whisper is a call to listen. The empire's justice, with all its precision, left broken lives. Li Kang's family, Ting Lan's hunger, Zhou Ran's silent dreams. Their stories ask us to build a world where punishment heals, where families are not collateral, where justice sees the human heart. Zhang Wei, inspired by his great uncle, vows to teach these lessons, to share the past's whispers with his students, to advocate for a fairness that the empire never found. The candle is out, but its light lives in us, in the questions we ask, the changes we seek, the stories we carry forward. If you've been moved by this journey through history's shadows, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories alive, binding the past to the present, reminding us that the whispers of ancient China still speak, if we dare to listen.